I'll be co-moderating this meeting together with my colleague Philippe Guillaumet, Secretary General at the Medports Association, who has kindly agreed to co-organize this meeting with us. Let me recall very quickly before we start. I will be sharing a presentation on the screen. Let me recall very quickly some technical tips. Please, first of all, use headphones. It's possible. That will help the interpreters to be able to listen to you. Mute your microphone whenever you are not speaking, and turn off your camera as well. I'd like to recall as well that the webinar will be live streamed on Facebook. Our Facebook address is www.facebook.com/UFM Secretariat. And just let me recall, you have this in the logistical note that has been sent to you. So whenever you want to speak, you just have to raise hand using the function you will see on your screen. You can also use the Q&A function in order to submit questions to the speakers. And finally, you've got this interpretation button in which you have to select either English or French, or just leave it off if you don't want to connect to our interpreters. And please don't touch the mute original audio function. Just select English, French, or just leave it off if you don't want to select any of the two languages. And last but not least, please note, very important, that if you are listening to the translation on the French channel and you're going to speak, you must speak only in French. And if you prefer to speak in English, you must select the original audio or the English channel in the translation. So you have to choose in advance and before choosing the interpretation channel, whether you want to speak in French or in English. So if you speak in French, please choose the French interpretation channel, and vice versa. Okay, you also know that there's an app that has been provided to you. You can download it from Play Store or Apple Store. It's called Globenti, and you can use also this app for the interpretation. You can connect to it by using also listening to this webinar through the headphones on your mobile phone. So thanks a lot, and now it's my pleasure. I will stop sharing screen, and it's my pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency, the Secretary General of the UFM Secretariat, Mr. Nasser Kamel. Mr. Secretary General, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesc. Thank you very much, you and all your colleagues in the very important sector of transport and urban development. Well, I'll start by extending to all of you, of course, my wishes for being in good health, all of you and your loved one, in very exceptional circumstances. So I hope all of you are in good health, and that the next few weeks will bring a better condition for all of us. And on behalf of the UFM, or the Union for the Mediterranean, I would like to welcome all of you to today's webinar on the impact of COVID-19 on ports and maritime transport in the Mediterranean, and also the possible short and medium and long-term response we could bring to it. I'm extremely thankful and grateful to Medports Association for co-organizing this very important event with us. And I'm also thankful to all the distinguished speakers who are participating at today's meeting. The International Association of Ports and Harbors, the International Transport Forum of the OECD, l'Institut Supérieur d'Économie Maritime, IMO, the UN UNCTAD, the EU Commission. Thank you for accepting to share with you your insight, your knowledge, and your experience regarding this issue today. And also, all of you who are following, participating from across the globe, and also representative of governments, port authorities within our region, the Mediterranean, especially that we all know that we are all living under very stressful and busy schedule due to the emergency that we have to deal with in every sector, and more specifically on the maritime sector. Well, I don't need to tell experts that 80% of trade is transported by maritime, by shipping. And despite the difficult times we went through, ports all over the world have succeeded to keep their function and their primary role in terms of allowing cargo to move freely and smoothly from one country to another. Albeit, or despite the fact, of course, that passenger traffic is, for the time being, curtailed or closed, as far as I understand. Against all odds, our maritime industry is playing an essential role in the short-term emergency response to the pandemic by facilitating, of course, the transport of vital commodity and products, especially health and hygienic, mask, all we needed to deal with this emergency, and also basic goods and that have helped sustain a decent level of jobs and trade, and kept the global economy functioning, of course, at a much lower pace than before the crisis. We all know that mid and long-term responses to the crisis would need to take into account what the pandemic has already led to, a drop in global trade. We all know that we have lost so far maybe around 3% of that trade. We know that, unfortunately, for the next quarter, we'll be losing even more. Some people are predicting that the decline will be around 27%, which I hope it's not true. But in the final analysis, you, as primary responsible of this very important and strategic activity, are the one maintaining, protecting the supply chain and making it and keeping it open. And as much as we talk about regionalization and localization and changes in supply chains, and even people are talking about nationalization of supply chains, we all know that our world has become so interdependent, and that our value chain and supply chain will remain global in nature, even if some changes happens in the next few years. And that will be ensured, of course, by continuous flow of maritime trade. Of course, while safeguarding health, safety, and the well-being of the transport or the maritime transport community. I'm quite confident that sharing what you're doing today in terms of sharing best practices for rendering shipping ports fully operational would help improve regional cooperation during the pandemic, and will also help build resilience. And the word resilience is very important at this particular time. Not only to deal with the current crisis, but also to be able to deal with future shocks in this sector in the wake of the crisis. Today's discussion are very important to us at the UFM because they will be the basis or the food for thought in our next UFM strategic transport action plan for the Mediterranean region. And in that sense, we'll be listening very carefully to your presentation, to your experience, to your strategies in dealing with the current crisis, to be able to draw a conclusion and lessons and integrate that in our strategic action plan. I wish you success in this deliberation, and I would like to thank you again for being with us, and hope this meeting will be fruitful and full of new and insightful knowledge for everyone participating. I will end by thanking all my partners again, and I will have I have the pleasure to give the floor to Monsieur Hervé Martel, le président de l'association Medport et aussi le CEO du Grand Port Maritime de Marseille. La parole est à vous. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, monsieur le secrétaire général. Bonjour, bonjour mesdames, bonjour messieurs. Très heureux de vous trouver tous en bonne santé ce matin, là où vous vous trouvez. Très heureux que l'on puisse se parler, même à distance. Et également très honoré d'avoir l'occasion ce matin, au nom de la Medport Association, d'ouvrir avec vous ce séminaire sur les impacts de la pandémie Covid-19 sur les ports et le transport maritime. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? On me dit que vous ne m'entendez pas. Allô?
Moi, je vous entends très bien.
Bon, ok. Donc, je continue. Donc oui, donc je voulais à nouveau remercier l'Union pour la Méditerranée de co-organiser avec nous ce séminaire. Le sujet de la pandémie Covid-19 est évidemment un sujet d'actualité, même s'il faut bien le reconnaître d'emblée. À l'heure où nous nous parlons, il reste beaucoup plus d'incertitudes et d'interrogations sur l'avenir que de réponses certaines ou de prévisions assurées. Pour cette raison que, me semble-t-il, ce séminaire pourrait être le premier d'une série qui nous permettrait de suivre et pourquoi pas d'anticiper les conséquences de cette crise, tout à fait inédite dans l'histoire récente du monde en général et du monde des transports en particulier. Ces rencontres pourraient aussi nous permettre de contribuer à la mise en œuvre d'un plan d'action pour un réseau de transport plus intégré entre toutes les rives de la Méditerranée, sujet qui nous intéresse tous autour de cette table virtuelle. On le sait tous, hein, les impacts de cette pandémie, ils sont multiples, d'ordre politique, social, économique, même technologique, j'ai envie de dire. Et nous savons aussi qu'ils se présentent à nous sur différentes échelles de temps. À très court terme et de façon très immédiate, la fermeture des frontières, le confinement Et bien sûr, l'impact de ces décisions sur l'économie mondiale ont conduit à une chute drastique du transport maritime et de l'activité portuaire dans chacun de nos pays. Les ports ont traversé cette crise et ont, je crois, très majoritairement su assurer la continuité de ce service qui reste essentiel pour l'économie de leur pays. Ensuite, à court terme, si on regarde devant, alors que, je l'espère, la pandémie semble s'essouffler, que le risque d'une deuxième vague semble plutôt s'éloigner, c'est, me semble-t-il, la question du redémarrage de l'activité qui se pose aujourd'hui, avec, là encore, beaucoup d'incertitudes et des situations très contrastées d'un secteur à l'autre. À plus long terme, toutes les hypothèses sont possibles, j'y reviendrai, mais je pense que c'est aussi l'intérêt d'échanger dans ce genre de webinaire aujourd'hui, c'est d'examiner ce que sont les sorties possibles à plus long terme. Je le disais, la situation est très contrastée secteur par secteur. Vous le rappeliez, monsieur le secrétaire général, s'agissant de l'activité de voyageurs, de passagers. Elle a tout simplement été mise à l'arrêt par des décisions des États de fermeture des frontières, de confinement. Alors, je pense au transport maritime de passagers entre les rives de la Méditerranée, qui est quelque chose de si important pour les ressortissants de nos différents pays. Et je pense aussi à l'industrie de la croisière. Il n'y a pas, à ma connaissance, d'autres exemples dans l'histoire d'une telle situation dans l'histoire du transport maritime où, par décision administrative, finalement, le trafic s'est brutalement arrêté. Ça impacte évidemment nos économies portuaires, ça impacte évidemment l'économie des entreprises de transport maritime. S'agissant des transports de passagers entre les rives de la Méditerranée, je suis assez confiant que dès lors que les interdictions seront levées, ce trafic redémarrera. Le besoin de mobilité des personnes, je ne crois pas, à titre personnel, qu'il sera fortement impacté par cette crise. S'agissant en revanche de l'industrie de la croisière, du tourisme en général et de la croisière en particulier, je pense qu'on peut être plus inquiet. On voit difficilement un redémarrage vigoureux avant l'année 2021. Et je pense que c'est à cette échéance-là que nous devons regarder une reprise éventuelle de l'activité. Et personne, je crois, ne sait dire aujourd'hui si les acteurs de ces filières auront les reins assez solides pour attendre ce redémarrage de l'activité. Le commerce et les échanges, ils ont également ralenti, ne se sont évidemment pas arrêtés. Ralenti d'abord en raison de l'arrêt ou du ralentissement des exportations de la Chine, puis d'un arrêt des importations des autres pays, puisque le confinement et l'arrêt de la consommation a conduit à l'arrêt des importations. Et enfin, et probablement de façon plus durable, sous l'impact du ralentissement de l'économie. On le sait, au niveau mondial. Et personne ne sait vraiment à quel rythme et jusqu'à quel niveau ces économies vont redémarrer. Je pense notamment à la crise profonde dans laquelle se trouve le continent nord-américain. Et donc, je crois, grande incertitude. Personne n'a de visibilité à plus de quelques semaines sur l'organisation de ces transports. Alors, les armateurs, pour l'instant, ont adapté leur desserte en sautant des escales, en supprimant des départs, en modifiant à la marge aujourd'hui l'organisation des lignes maritimes. Il y a un certain nombre de questions qui restent aujourd'hui, me semble-t-il, sans réponse. Est-ce que toutes les compagnies maritimes survivront à cette crise? C'est une première question. Est-ce que cette crise peut relancer le mouvement de concentration que nous avons connu il y a quelques années et la situation s'est peut-être un petit peu stabilisée? Est-ce que ce sera toujours le cas? Est-ce que les schémas de desserte des différentes alliances, des différents armateurs vont être revus profondément, rebattant peut-être les cartes du positionnement des ports? Il est trop tôt pour répondre à toutes ces questions, mais à l'évidence, elles vont se poser. Secteur industriel, enfin, avec là encore, selon les industries, des situations très, très contrastées. La pire étant probablement l'industrie automobile, qui s'est quasiment arrêtée. Mais je crois qu'on a des points communs. Baisse de la production pour des raisons sanitaires internes dans les différentes usines, difficulté d'approvisionnement en matières premières, saturation des stocks, baisse de la consommation en aval des usines. Toutes les industries ont au moins ralenti et ont été durement touchées. Et à vrai dire, là encore, grande incertitude, mais ce qui me semble clair, c'est que les conditions sont réunies pour que beaucoup d'industriels réfléchissent à une rationalisation de leur outil de production. Et on entend ici ou là tel secteur d'activité qui déjà envisage la fermeture de certains sites ou la réorganisation de la production. Voilà sur le court terme, encore une fois, je pense des sujets dont on va pouvoir débattre ce matin avec beaucoup plus d'incertitudes que de certitudes, mais des sujets de préoccupation pour les ports. À plus long terme, alors, nouvelle réflexion sur les circuits de production, sur la relocalisation, sur la consommation des schémas de transport à l'échelle mondiale. Toutes les hypothèses sont possibles. Il est vrai que ça peut réinterroger les principes de mondialisation. Je suis plutôt d'accord avec ce que disait le secrétaire général de l'Union pour la Méditerranée. La mondialisation est quelque chose de suffisamment puissant et ancré pour que sa remise en cause profonde ne soit probablement pas une hypothèse raisonnable, mais on peut avoir des lignes qui bougent et bien entendu, les ports seraient impactés ou peut-être d'ailleurs pourraient saisir des opportunités dans ces conditions-là. Alors face à cette situation très, très incertaine, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Je crois qu'il faut se préparer à l'avenir, mais un avenir qu'on ne connaît pas, et peut-être aussi participer à construire cet avenir, participer à construire ce monde d'après dont tout le monde parle à notre place. Alors, qu'est-ce que ça signifie? Ça signifie d'abord pour notre industrie, comme pour toutes les industries, il est évident qu'on ne s'organisera pas demain comme on était organisé hier en matière d'activité portuaire, en matière de transport maritime, en matière de logistique. Par exemple, les dispositifs de protection de la santé des salariés, on est parti sur le long terme avec des mesures d'organisation, des mesures sanitaires avec lesquelles il va nous falloir vivre pendant probablement plusieurs mois, plusieurs années, parce que si la deuxième vague est écartée, le retour de la pandémie l'année prochaine reste une hypothèse plausible. Donc, je pense que les organisations dans notre industrie seront profondément et durablement modifiées, à commencer d'ailleurs, parce que c'est peut-être gadget de le dire, mais par plus de digitalisation, plus de dématérialisation, plus de télétravail, et la web conférence, le webinaire de ce matin en est un bon exemple. En quelques mots, je pense qu'on ne reviendra jamais à la situation d'avant, mais sur le monde d'après, les axes stratégiques sur lesquels notre association travaille depuis plusieurs années, je crois qu'ils seront confortés. Je crois d'abord que le travail collectif à l'échelle de la Méditerranée continue à avoir tout son sens dans le contexte que l'on connaît. Et les thématiques que nous travaillons ensemble, je crois que ça nous conforte dans l'idée qu'elles sont utiles et qu'elles sont indispensables. La Méditerranée restera une terre d'échange. Elle peut, je crois, montrer la voie pendant cette période particulièrement incertaine sur certains aspects. Et encore une fois, je crois que c'est important que collectivement, nous puissions proposer des solutions pour construire ce monde d'après, construire cette sortie de crise. Alors, des objectifs partagés, je crois qu'on a commencé à y travailler, on en a un certain nombre en commun. Le premier d'entre eux, c'est un objectif concernant la transition écologique, avec le déploiement du branchement électrique à quai, l'utilisation de nouveaux carburants, le soutien aux énergies non renouvelables, etc. On a dû annuler, malheureusement, à cause du Covid, un séminaire qui était prévu sur la mise en œuvre de la zone ECA en Méditerranée, déjà en partenariat avec l'Union pour la Méditerranée. Les discussions sur ces thématiques sont plus que jamais d'actualité. Elles devront reprendre dès que cela sera possible. Objectif également de renouveau de l'organisation logistique avec le développement de ce qu'on appelle d'autoroutes de la mer, ou en tout cas de lignes maritimes sur la zone méditerranéenne, en allant vers l'affirmation qu'un réseau transméditerranéen de transport pourrait être un lien entre les corridors européens et les corridors qui sont en train d'être mis en place sur le continent africain, que c'est une bonne façon de favoriser l'intermodalité. Là encore, on a dû annuler un séminaire de travail sur cette question du trafic ro-ro et ro-pax en Méditerranée. Il faut aussi le relancer dès que possible. Transition industrielle avec la perspective de nouvelles localisations ou densification industrielle en Méditerranée. avec éventuellement une re-régionalisation de certains systèmes productifs dans le cadre d'une industrie évidemment décarbonée, compétitive et source de croissance et d'échanges commerciaux entre nos pays au sein de la Méditerranée. Et enfin, un objectif de compétence et de qualification pour faire face à toutes ces évolutions. Je crois que c'est quelque chose de fondamental. C'est un sujet sur lequel on a beaucoup travaillé dans le cadre de notre association pour avoir des réponses sur les métiers en tension et pour les métiers de demain. Deux exemples. On travaille sur le projet YEPMED financé par l'Union européenne pour améliorer l'employabilité des jeunes sur les secteurs, sur le secteur portuaire en fait. Et puis le sujet sur lequel l'association s'est directement impliquée, qui est la création d'un réseau méditerranéen de formation au métier de la mer, qui est une sorte de cloud de la formation, de l'offre de formation à l'échelle méditerranéenne. Voilà. Donc tous ces chantiers, il nous faut maintenant les relancer en partageant, et je crois que c'est l'occasion qui nous est donnée aujourd'hui, quelque part un état zéro, un état des lieux de la situation actuelle. Et je pense que effectivement, ce premier webinaire est une occasion rêvée pour remettre sur les rails tous ces dossiers et peut-être d'autres. Très heureux que ça se fasse avec l'Union pour la Méditerranée, encore une fois. Il est vraiment important que l'on puisse poursuivre et continuer à approfondir la collaboration entre nous pour mettre en place des solutions très, très concrètes sur le développement de la région méditerranéenne, à commencer par l'accompagnement à la création de nouvelles lignes intra-méditerranéennes. À ce titre, nous sommes en train de travailler sur un MOU, un Memorandum of Understanding entre nos deux entités, et je souhaite vraiment, tout comme vous, je le sais, qu'il puisse être signé dans les meilleurs délais. Voilà, donc pendant cette période très incertaine, l'ensemble de nos ports ont eu à souffrir d'une façon ou d'une autre des conséquences de la pandémie, de la crise, plus ou moins lourdement en fonction des secteurs, en fonction des caractéristiques des ports, en fonction des réactions d'ailleurs de nos différents États. Et pendant cette période, notre association a souhaité faciliter les échanges de bonnes pratiques, les échanges d'informations entre les uns et les autres pour qu'on maintienne une solidarité et une chaîne de contact entre les ports. Et donc, depuis fin avril, une fois par semaine, sont organisés les cafés de la Medport qui permettent de réunir les représentants des autorités portuaires méditerranéennes pour échanger librement sur ces questions, sur les problématiques que l'on rencontre et pour préparer l'avenir. Voilà, les mois qui viennent sont très incertains. Ils risquent d'être assez difficiles pour nous comme pour nos clients. Chacun d'entre nous devra faire des efforts conséquents pour sauvegarder l'écosystème maritime et portuaire, pour assurer la survie d'un certain nombre de nos clients et de partenaires, pour mettre en œuvre les différentes mesures et plans de relance que nous déciderons dans les ports ou que décideront les autorités publiques dans chacun de nos pays. Mais notre association, aidée encore une fois par d'autres comme l'UPM, continuera à jouer son rôle dans la densification de ce réseau méditerranéen des ports pour que, encore une fois, la Méditerranée continue de proposer des solutions alternatives, des solutions innovantes, des solutions durables pour l'ensemble du secteur portuaire et maritime à l'échelle de ce bassin méditerranéen. Voilà, j'ai demandé à ce titre que la prochaine AG, Assemblée Générale de la Medport Association, qui se tiendra fin juin, le 23 juin, soit l'occasion de réunir l'ensemble des directeurs et présidents des ports de l'association pour qu'on puisse clairement relancer nos travaux et, le cas échéant, les réorienter si ça a été jugé nécessaire pour la période 2020 et 2021. Voilà, je n'en dirai pas plus ce matin. Je vais vous souhaiter un excellent webinaire et vous souhaiter une très, très bonne journée à tous et puis vous dire à très bientôt. J'espère qu'on aura l'occasion de se revoir physiquement pour un certain nombre d'entre vous. Très bonne journée à tous. Merci.
Thank you very much for this inspiring remarks. I think that we are ready to move to the first session with our panelists. I think from these welcoming remarks, we can derive that there are plenty of challenges and opportunities ahead, and maybe the best way to face these challenges and to implement these opportunities is firstly through evidence-based responses. And we have in our first panel, which will be dealing with the impacts of the current pandemic on maritime transport and port connectivity in the region. We have three panelists representing three organizations who are really dealing with data, making their forecasts and an assessment of the current situation, and also giving us some indication on which could be the way forward to as a response to the crisis. So it is my pleasure to give the floor to our first speaker in this panel, Mr. Patrick Verhoeven. He's the managing director of the International Association of Ports and Harbors. Patrick Verhoeven is managing director of this association, and he's responsible for policy and strategy. This organization, IAPH, represents about 170 ports and some 140 port-related businesses in 90 countries worldwide. So, Patrick, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesc, and good morning to everybody. Best regards from Antwerp. I'm very sorry, of course, that I'm not really joining you in the Mediterranean, which would have been a lot nicer, of course. But this city, as you know, or may not know, has been under Spanish rule for several centuries. So we really feel like we are in the Mediterranean. And even today, the weather is helping us. We have a very beautiful sunny day here in Antwerp. So very glad to be with you in this webinar and to share some views with you and some thoughts on how the crisis is indeed impacting the sector worldwide and what are some of the issues that will come on our path during the next weeks and during the next months. I have a few slides to help me with the story. I think somebody will put them up, or am I supposed to share them myself? That's entirely clear.
No, I will be sharing them.
Okay. Thank you. So if we can go to the next slide, that gives an overview of some of the topics that and some of the perspectives that in the next 10 minutes or so, I would like to share with you. And if we can go immediately to the first point, the present impact. We've been conducting since the beginning of April an economic impact barometer, where we are surveying ports every week and asking them for feedback on 6 indicators, which you see there in the left column of the slide here. So we ask ports to share with us their impressions of the impact of vessel calls, on restrictions that have been imposed, on delays that have been caused by extra procedures, delays in hinterland transport, capacity utilization, and possible shortages of workers. And we distinguish for each of the indicators also in a number of categories. And so we've been monitoring at a global level this picture for 7 weeks now. And of course, you see an evolution in these graphs. And you see, for instance, on vessel calls, that from the start of the second quarter, indeed, there is a more pronounced impact. What is also clear is that if we look at the port business in general, that the impact on passenger vessels has been the highest, as we all know, since the cruise industry and cruise business has come to a complete stop. What we've also noticed over the weeks is that, of course, regional differences are becoming more and more pronounced. And what you see here is a global picture that hides, of course, certain regional differences. We started also since a few weeks to bring in a regional focus. And for the purpose of this webinar, I've included a specific Mediterranean focus, which is the last column in the graph. We had in the last survey, so last week's survey, we had 11 ports from the Mediterranean joining. Most of them are European, so I think that's also important to notice. But you do see that compared to the global picture, which is the column just before that in week 21, you see that there seems to be a much more pronounced impact on decline in vessel calls, for instance. There is also a more pronounced impact on hinterland transport delays, and there seems, lastly, to be also more pronounced impact when it comes to shortages of port-related workers. Of course, the crisis affects regions in the world at different stages, starting in Asia, then moving to Europe, to North America. We are getting out of lockdown, but there are still parts of the world where the crisis is still reaching its peak, for instance, in Latin America. So that is why that we decided also with this barometer, first of all, to continue that from now on a bi-weekly basis, but in every report include a regional comparison on the different indicators so that we get a better picture of what is really going on in the world. That is observing what is happening at the moment. And if we can go to the next slide, I think what we're all, of course, more interested in. Next slide, please. Yes, is what will happen, what will be sort of the scenario for the months and the year to come, what will be the impact on trade, notably. As I mentioned, we've seen the impact on ports, on cargo volumes, especially since the second quarter. This is a forecast that was produced beginning of April by the World Trade Organization, where they plot the, let's say, future development of world merchandise trade volumes in different scenarios. A lot of uncertainty, and I think Hervé Martel also mentioned it in his introduction, a lot of uncertainty still reigns. But according to WTO, in any case, they believe that even in an optimistic scenario, that which is the green scenario, that the decline will be more profound than the one of the last disruption that we had, which was the global financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. There was a major difference between these crises, and again, Hervé mentioned that very, very clearly in his introduction, is that the impact is actually, of course, it's virus, but the impact is government measures that have brought trade into decline because of the lockdowns and all of the other measures that were introduced. And in the end, it will also be governments rather, that will take us out of that situation, as we see release of the quarantine and other measures. Of course, what we don't know is, will there be a second peak? Will there be a vaccine? By what time will it come on the market? That also brings, of course, the uncertainty in this whole picture. One thing, and if we can go to the next slide, please. One thing that is certain is, I think, that we will remain in what is called the 1.5 meter economy for some time. Social distancing is not going to go away in a couple of weeks or even a couple of months from now. As I said, until the vaccine is really widely available across the world, we will have to work in conditions which are different than the ones that we were used to. For those of us working in offices, teleworking will stay with us, and that even may have some positive influences as well. Think on travel, think on congestion, commuting, and things like that. But of course, in our business, in logistics and ports, teleworking is not possible for everybody, and that means we have to look at other forms of innovation where people can perform their tasks in a safe possible way. On the picture here is an example of one of these innovations that hit the news quite broadly. This is a sort of bracelet or a watch which warns you if you are getting too close to somebody else, if you're working closer than within 1.5 meters. People who invented this actually invented it first for another purpose, but now it seems that it is actually quite handy to use in ports during operations, and they're making actually now very good business out of this innovation. So the crisis sometimes has a silver lining as well. Of course, with bringing in more technology to control how people work, one thing that will remain a major concern is privacy and how we deal with that, because some of the ideas that are floating around by using drones and other things, personally, I think are rather scary. So I think we should also come to a good balance here between both the innovations that exist and the privacy of people. Next slide, please. That brings us actually to the broader subject of digitalization. I think one thing that the crisis has illustrated is how important ports, shipping, the logistics industry is when it comes to keeping supply chains moving and feeding people, making sure essential supplies get where they have to be. The other thing that the crisis has demonstrated is that when you look at the global port sector, really there is a lot of heterogeneity when it comes to digitalization. Of course, we know a lot of the leading ports that call themselves smart ports that have really invested quite heavily in digitalization, but the majority is really lagging behind, and in some cases even far behind. I think we saw now very clearly how in many port communities people still have a large reliance on personal interaction and paper-based transactions. And just an indicator, port community system is considered to be, the cornerstone if you want to embrace digitalization and electronic exchange of information and documents and so on in the port. And port community systems have been with us for a long time. They were already invented in the 1980s. But if you look at the IMO member states, there are 174 IMO member states. Well, and they're all some maritime countries basically. Only 49 of them currently have ports with port community systems. So that's less than 1/3. And it doesn't always mean developed versus developing countries, because the United States, for instance, only has one port with a port community system, which is the port of Los Angeles. So there is which is the port actually that you see on the picture here. So there is a great opportunity here to accelerate, digitalization in our sector, and that is precisely the kind of recommendations that we are formulating as IPH together with a number of other maritime organizations. We hope to bring those recommendations out this week or early next week, which will be 8 recommendations in total, and they range from the basic implementation of what is already legally required under the IMO FAL Convention, which is the electronic exchange between ship and shore, but moving further to new data sets that will enable port call optimization and the introduction of electronic bills of lading. I think there is a window of opportunity here now to work with governments and intergovernmental organizations to move digitalization to the next level in our sector. So the next slide, if I may. We talked about disruption, we talked about digitalization. The other big D is decarbonization. And of course, we had an ambitious program here developed for the maritime sector at the level of the IMO, with a target to reduce carbon emissions of shipping with 50% by 2050 compared to 2008 level. As a result of the crisis, a lot of, or at least 2 important meetings at IMO level, which were due to take place this spring and where a number of important decisions were expected, had to be postponed. So the question is, will that have a major impact on the target? Are we still on track? And perhaps even more important, what is the appetite of the industry to invest in decarbonization now that there is a crisis on our hands, which will have effects on business and on economics. And if you read the newspapers, you get some conflicting views. Some say that it's a great opportunity to accelerate, like with digitalization, but then others are more careful and say, well, the crisis may have a negative impact on the investments that we have to take in the sector to allow decarbonization. So there are a number of mixed messages out there. Next slide, please. I could also have shown a cruise vessel here rather than a big container vessel, but I think the discussion is the same thing. Already before the crisis, there was a discussion whether, you know, the obsession with volume and size in our industry has reached its limits. And what it certainly the crisis has again illustrated, as it did in 2008 and 2009, is the vulnerability for ports with a revenue model that is based on volume. And there are possibly opportunities here to rethink that concept of how a port is organized and what revenue streams a port has other than port dues and concession fees. So that's maybe an issue that can also be brought more to the forefront in the discussions as, you know, what are we, or what sort of sector are we becoming in post-COVID-19 times. And finally, to end on, if the next slide, please, to end on a positive note, I think what I noticed, and I think a lot of people noticed, is that generally, so not even within our sector, but generally, this crisis has brought people together more than ever. And I think we see that also in our industry, which is an industry that is notoriously fragmented. But we saw over the last weeks several, not so fast, please keep this one. We saw several initiatives that were raising attention for crew, ship crews, port workers, other essential workers in the supply chain. This initiative, Forms of Hope, was initiated by Abu Dhabi ports and got following all over the world. And also at, let's say, the level of trade organizations that I operate in, we've seen this industry come together in a number of initiatives, writing and preparing recommendations on various issues like crew changes, ship-shore interface. I join a call every week, which is every Wednesday, which is today, with more than 20 international maritime organizations. We call each other every week during an hour just to update each other and to collaborate on a number of initiatives, Direction, IMO, G20, and we've also been working on other initiatives. So hopefully this may have a lasting impact on a sector which, as I said before, is notoriously fragmented. So that's what I had as an introduction. If I can just end with two small notices on the next slide. This is our World Ports COVID-19 information portal, where you will find the economic barometer reports, which are much more detailed than what I showed in my initial slide. You will also find guidance here on operating, of course, within a COVID-19 environment, but also how to get out of lockdown, and also various international guidances from other organizations and regular news updates. And final slide is the last slide, please, is a little advertisement for a webinar that we are organizing in a series of coronavirus webinars, which we started when we were forced to cancel our own conference in Antwerp in March. And the next one is about improving ship-shore relations in the post-COVID-19 era, where we have the Secretary General of IMO, Kita Klim, the Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping, and the CEO of the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore on the 10th of June. So I warmly invite you to join that. And thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to be on this MedPorts webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, for your insight. It is much appreciated. I'm sure there will be questions and some debate afterwards, even with IMO regarding this the third D you have put forward about decarbonization and what can be the impact of the current pandemic on decarbonization, and whether it can be a driving force, as you said, or it can maybe negatively impact on the evolution of the trend we had already initiated. So thanks again, and I'm now happy to give the floor to the next speaker, to Olaf Merk, who's an economist and responsible for ports and shipping at the International Transport Forum at the OECD. Olaf has directed and written a range of subjects, including port policy, megaships, cruise shipping, and decarbonization of maritime transport. And he will be providing us with an assessment that ITF is conducting now, and also on the impact of COVID, and by using their very relevant data sets they usually manage at ITF, and with a particular focus on the Mediterranean ports. So thank you, and Olaf, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning to all. It is indeed a pleasure to be at this webinar of the Union for the Mediterranean Medports. Even if, of course, a live meeting would have been nice. I also have a couple of slides to show, basically to give our impression of what is the impact of the crisis on the Mediterranean ports. So if the slides could be put up, then I can just walk you through them. And the idea is to really give you some sort of an idea of what can we see as trends over the last couple of months in the Mediterranean ports. I don't see the slides yet. Can they be put up, please? Yes, and there they are. Very good. So the first slide I'd like to show you is basically what is the impact on the port volumes of the main ports in the Mediterranean. These are data that we collected ourselves. They include around 30 different ports in the Mediterranean region, and this is what we see for the first quarter in 2020. So these are, let's say, year-on-year figures. So that means we compare the first quarter of 2020 with the first quarter of 2019. And when you look at these numbers, what we see is, in terms of total port volumes, we see a drop of around 5% in this first quarter. And then, of course, there is a lot of difference in the different, let's say, categories of cargo and passengers. Actually, there we see an increase in liquid bulk. We see a small increase in container traffic, but we see large drops in dry bulk, minus 12%. And of course, we see huge drops when it comes to ferry traffic and cruise traffic and cruise passengers. So the drops here that we notice over the first quarter is minus 21 for ferries and minus 34 for cruise passengers. The next slide looks more closely and zooms in on what has happened per month. So here we look at the, let's say, the first 4 months over 2020. So we also include data for the ports that already disclose this data on what's happening in April. And what we see here is, well, in itself, not very surprising. The main negative impacts are, of course, taking place in March and in April. So these are, let's say, the bars in orange. The dark orange is April, the lighter colored orange is March. In total, we have seen drops in cargo volumes of -12% in March, -13% in April, and of course, the very large drops in when it comes to the ferries and to the cruise. In March, for ferries, there was -60% with regards to passengers. For cruise was -70% of the passengers. This doesn't include the passenger numbers for April, but of course we know that for at least for the cruise passengers, this is virtually zero at the moment. So the drops, the declines would be even larger for this month. Now, we also looked in, let's in the next slide, at the canal crossings, the Suez Canal crossings. The data that we have found so far are only on the first 2 months. So let's say the effect of the crisis is not really visible there. You see overall around 10% more ships over the first 2 months. But what is interesting is that there is already a decline with regards to the car carriers and the number of container ships. And the reason why that is interesting is because we have recently seen a lot of container carriers, or several container carriers, circumventing the Suez Canal, taking instead the Cape of Good Hope route, because this is cheaper for them in the current circumstances with very low oil prices compared to the Suez Canal tolls. Now, the next slide gives us a little bit of impression what did it actually cost to transport to or from the Mediterranean. We zoomed in here on the container shipping costs. This is let's say the development of the Asia Med container spot rates since 2016. And if you look at what happened, let's say over the last 3 months, basically we see stability, if you can put it that way. So there's not, let's say, a drastic drop or decline that you might expect. This is actually, let's say, a fairly stable development, which in a way is actually pretty remarkable. Especially if you consider that these spot rates do not include, let's say, or to take into account that the fuel prices have gone down over the last period. So if you would take that into account, actually, what you see is that the container freight rates have increased by 25 to 40% over the last couple of months. Then there was also a question to say something about connectivity, and this is highlighted in the next slide, which looks at well, the number of services, and more specifically the number of services that were cancelled. So the number of blank sailings. And why is this taking place? Well, basically because in the container sector, a lot of the capacity is now being idled and withdrawn from operation. At the global level, this is around 10%. So 10% of the global fleet capacity is not in operation at the moment. And the way this is done is by cancelling a lot of the regular services of course, in a lot of different ports. This is the picture on the Asia Med trades. Of course, differences between ports, and when you look at the Mediterranean ports, there are some ports where up to 50% of the container services were cancelled. And this, in a way, is also how carriers have managed to maintain high freight rates. So they withdraw capacity, and that has allowed freight rates to remain stable. This brings me to, let's say, a slide that is a little bit less on the impact, but more on, let's say, how this crisis could be used to not let it go to waste. There is this saying that the crisis is also an opportunity, and of course, this is in a way a cliche, but it also contains a lot of truth. And governments have a lot of leverage at the moment to actually use this crisis to not go to waste. And that is because of the debt of shipping companies. For example, if you look at the container sector, the accumulated debt of the largest 10 carriers at the moment is around $100 billion US, which is kind of the debt of a medium-sized country. Why this debt? Well, basically because there have been a lot of acquisitions of competitors, of smaller companies, of a lot of ships, the bigger ships, of course, and a lot of vertical integration. So a lot of acquisition of let's say, other parts of the containerized supply chain, including terminal operators and logistics companies. This has created a lot of debt, and in a way, this has also been stimulated by government policies, for example, by subsidies that have facilitated carriers to buy more and bigger ships. Why is it giving this leverage to governments? Well, because this debt has created an unsustainable situation, which means that a lot of carriers will become dependent on their governments for bailouts, for lines of credit. And here is the leverage. Three concerns that this leverage could take into account. The first is the moral hazard that is related to shipping debt, but also to bailouts, basically. Moral hazard means that if you know that you're going to be bailed out, you're going to take more risk. And this is basically what we think has also happened over the last couple of years. So carriers took more debt on than was really sustainable, and which also explains that even if the crisis has been relatively mild for the moment for container carriers, if you look at the numbers, for example, there are still a lot of carriers already that get state aid and that get support packages from their government. So that is one concern, the moral hazard, and also if somehow bailouts could help to get this moral hazard and this risk-taking to a lower level. The second concern it's related actually, but is a more broader point, which is that a lot of the risks and the costs of shipping have been offloaded to public sector and society. And an example is the Suez Canal that I just mentioned a little bit earlier, where carriers are now circumventing the canal and are taking another route because it is cheaper. But of course, in the process, this takes longer, they burn more fuel, it creates more emissions. And of course, it also brings in less revenues for the Suez Canal. And I think this is significant because in a way, the new Suez Canal and let's say the broadening of the Suez Canal was also needed because the ships got much bigger. So carriers needed a bigger canal but now are in a situation where they are actually paying less or expect the Canal Authority to reduce the fees. So in a way, the situation is that shipping firms can reduce their costs, but in the process also increase the costs for society. And that is because all of the, let's say, what economists call externalities, so the external costs of shipping are most of the time not included, not incorporated in the price that is paid for this. So there's a lot of tax exemptions, for example, for ship fuel, which makes this possible in the first place. There's no way in which carbon is priced. Just a few examples. And then the third challenge that is also related is that there is, in a way, a race to the bottom of government subsidies that makes this possible. If you look in history, what you see is that a lot of the, let's say, the subsidies or the support that was supposed to be temporary, that was supposed to be related to a crisis, actually remained in place after the crisis. That happened after the great crisis in the 1930s. So that also happened in the financial crisis in 2008 to 10. So there is an expectation that this might happen again, and also that there will be some sort of a competition between different states on who actually creates the best conditions for shipping companies to come. An example of that is what we've seen now in several countries, which is reduced port fees. So reducing the fees for shipping companies in time of the crisis, which strikes me as some sort of a curious idea, because first of all, ports are themselves also affected by the crisis. We've seen the numbers, and it has a direct impact on the revenue streams for ports. That was also mentioned by Patrick Hoeven in his talk. And maybe ports are even worse affected than some of the shipping firms, because they cannot actually cut a lot of their costs. They cannot, in a way, withdraw the vessels from operation to use that equipment. And then, of course, this risks some sort of a race to the bottom. If one port starts to do it, the other ports are also looking if they are going to reduce the fees, and maybe they also feel tempted to do the same. Well, in conclusion, there are already severe impacts from this crisis. That is clear. We showed some of the numbers. Obviously, there will be more impacts in the months to come. Previous speakers have noted how difficult it is to project what will be going on, but it is clear that this crisis is far from over. Governments have leverage and can use this crisis actually to stimulate more resilient and sustainable shipping models, and we certainly hope that that is one of the things that is going to happen in the coming months. Maybe one last slide to show you 30 ports that are included. Of course, these are not all of the Mediterranean ports, and we would be happy to include, of course, the data also from the ports that we do not have information on at this moment. So happy to contact me for that information, and I think I'll leave it at this for the moment. Happy to take any questions and looking forward to a discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Olaf, also for your insight. I think we will have time afterwards, although we are quite behind the schedule now to go over some of the issues you have raised. And now I've been asked by the next speaker, by Paul Touré, to give him the floor because he has another video conference in some minutes. So I would like to quickly give him the floor in order for him to brief us on also his on the forecasts that are being conducted at the Institut Supérieur d'Économie Maritime, ISEMAR. Thank you, Paul. The floor is yours.
Bonjour à tous, je vais parler en français, pas trop rapidement pour la traduction. Donc, je vais un peu couvrir ce qui a déjà été dit, mais je vais essayer de faire un peu de prévision si on peut en faire. Donc, on va voir un peu mes slides, s'il vous plaît. Ok, par contre, mes slides sont en anglais, donc accessibles forcément à tous. Donc, la première page qu'on va voir après, c'est le timeline, hein, tout le monde la connaît, et c'est un peu la particularité de cette crise-là. Les précédentes crises étaient parties plutôt par un jour, on se souvient par exemple en 2008 ou en 1929, un jour que tout le monde a bien remarqué, et après un effondrement du système. Là, on est plus dans un fonctionnement progressif, on a eu l'effet chinois au début de l'hiver, enfin, dans l'hiver, puis après le moment européen qui est le début du confinement européen, puis ce moment américain, puis un mouvement plutôt mondial courant avril, et puis depuis mai, on a ce fonctionnement de la fin du déconfinement, en tout cas en Europe, le début du déconfinement, donc end of lockdown en Europe, et puis sans doute un mouvement américain qui va suivre. Donc c'est un peu la particularité de ce phénomène, c'est d'être dans une temporalité qui évolue, et qui évolue peut-être dans le bon sens, on doit l'espérer. Je vais rappeler un peu des fondamentaux, mais c'est plutôt après des vracs secs. Alors, j'ai remis sur la page d'après le BDI, non, excusez-moi, d'abord le pétrole. La particularité du pétrole, évidemment, c'est qu'il y a un marché spéculatif avec le pétrole qui fait qu'on a beau pas en consommer ou en consommer très peu, on a eu un boom de l'activité pétrolière à la fois dans l'usage des navires et du stockage terrestre, qui est sans doute en train de revenir à la normale dans ce mois de mai. Mais bon, le problème pour nos ports, c'est plutôt, port Méditerranée comme les autres, c'est plutôt la quasi-arrêt du raffinage ou le ralentissement du raffinage qui fait évidemment une activité portuaire réduite. Et on sait que les pétroliers ont souvent une importance dans les revenus des autorités portuaires. Et il est souhaitable qu'on revienne à la normale. Et évidemment, la fin du confinement, notamment européen, et une saison estivale normale va réamener de la consommation pétrolière. Ensuite, j'ai mis le vrac sec. Le vrac sec, donc c'est le BDI sur plusieurs années. Je ne sais pas si vous voyez bien à gauche, moi je ne le vois pas, attendez, à droite, pardon. Ce qui est important, c'est surtout de voir un peu ce que Clarkson à Londres prévoit. J'ai un problème de vision par rapport. Ah, voilà, je vois mieux. Et en fait, c'est sur le rapport Clarkson d'avril, et on voit ce qui est intéressant que du côté chinois, mais ça ne concerne peu une activité réduite, mais finalement peu réduite. Par contre, du côté européen, on voit bien que l'activité notamment du charbon et surtout du fer, va être réduite, et aussi le ciment ou les activités sidérurgiques. Donc, on peut s'attendre pour les ports méditerranéens, comme partout, à une petite réduction de 10 à 15% sur cette année des activités liées au vrac et au conventionnel. Par contre, tout le monde l'a remarqué, notamment dans les ports français, une grosse progression des exportations de grains, de céréales, et à l'inverse, l'entrée du soja comme nourriture pour animaux. Donc une année agricole finalement relativement bonne pour les activités portuaires, que ce soit dans les ports du nord ou du sud de l'Europe. Sur les conteneurs, qui est la figure d'après, je remets les deux informations. Alors, on l'a dit, on est sur 3 mois relativement difficiles, le désarmement qui prouve que la conteneurisation subit quand même un choc, mais finalement, 10 à 15% de navires désarmés et 17% de réduction de capacité durant l'hiver. C'est à la fois terrible, mais ce n'est pas, voilà, ce n'est pas un effondrement total. C'est un peu la note positive qu'on peut avoir. La conteneurisation est en train d'à peu près amortir ce choc-là. On le voit très bien sur la figure d'après, et où j'ai remis les taux de fret spot tel qu'il est sur le China Container Freight Index, et pour remarquer finalement que les armateurs ont décidé collectivement de tenir plutôt les prix. Et je crois que c'est plutôt une bonne nouvelle. Alors évidemment, je crois que c'est plus intéressant que le marché supporte l'industrie du conteneur plutôt que les États sauvent les compagnies. La France comme l'Allemagne n'ont pas forcément intérêt à devoir sauver aussi leurs compagnies maritimes. On a déjà assez à faire avec les compagnies aériennes et les constructeurs automobiles. Et finalement, le maintien des taux de fret à un niveau correct est plutôt une bonne nouvelle. Et regardez, si on compare par exemple à ce qui s'est passé à l'hiver, à la fin de l'hiver de l'automne 2019, mais à d'autres périodes, finalement, le maintien d'un taux de fret acceptable est plutôt une bonne nouvelle. Figure d'après. Alors, je me suis servi de la National Retail Federation, qui est l'association américaine des détaillants, qui a des perspectives par mois, et on peut peut-être voir ce qui pourrait être l'évolution du marché aussi européen. On voit bien un effondrement en mars et en avril, forcément avec le confinement, l'absence de consommation, et puis finalement un mois de mai, un mois de juin qui vont repartir, et un été qui va repartir, certes à un niveau un peu plus faible que l'année dernière, mais en tout cas avec la fin du confinement, un retour à la consommation. Alors évidemment, ça pose la question de l'arbitrage de la consommation. Est-ce qu'on consomme utile ou est-ce qu'on refait encore des achats plus de plaisir, et ça va être un peu la question de cette année économique un peu particulière. Si on compare à 2009, 2009 avait été vraiment une année de dépression économique où les Européens notamment avaient pratiquement plus consommé. On n'est peut-être pas à ce niveau-là. Donc un effondrement peut-être plus fort qu'en 2008-2009, mais peut-être une reprise beaucoup plus rapide. En 2009, la reprise avait été très forte, mais sur l'année 2010. Alors sur la vision du conteneur, vous voyez, moins 8% pour Alpha Liner, moins 11% pour Clarkson. Ça confirme ce qui a déjà été dit, c'est-à-dire le conteneur subit un choc pratiquement saisonnier sur le confinement de printemps, mais peut-être de l'espoir d'une vision beaucoup plus positive sur la fin de l'année. Suivant. Alors voilà, pour la Méditerranée, c'est notre problème. On a à la fois le canal, on a les ports de la rive sud, on a les grands hubs de Méditerranée centrale, enfin de la bande du corridor méditerranéen, on a les ports d'Interland du Nord. Voilà, ça tout le monde le connaît. Ce qui est important, c'est de voir le niveau de PIB tel qu'il est dégradé cette année. En gros, que ce soit pour la Grèce, l'Italie, la France et l'Espagne, on est à peu près à moins 10% de PIB, ce qui est finalement un choc très très important si on le compare par exemple à la crise de 2008. Donc ça, c'est ce qu'on peut noter. C'est ce niveau de dégradation relativement fort, et je me suis permis après de le remettre sur un graphique que je vous ai fait. Page suivante. Attendez, on va aller d'une page après, puis je reviendrai à celle-là, si vous permettez. J'ai mis un graphique. Voilà. Alors là, j'ai mis l'activité pour les 5 plus gros ports de Méditerranée du Nord-Ouest, c'est-à-dire les 2 ports espagnols de Valence et Barcelone, Gênes, La Spezia et Marseille. Si on regarde en 2009, le PIB, en gros, s'est contracté de 5 à 3% selon les pays, et la chute avait été relativement importante. Alors évidemment, selon les ports, mais vous voyez, on avait une chute à peu près d'une dizaine de pourcents. Si on regarde la crise européenne de 2012, on a une contraction de 3% du PIB et on a une chute un peu moins grande. Alors voilà, la question, elle est simple. Avec la chute du PIB cette année autour de 10%, de combien peut être le recul de la conteneurisation ces prochains mois? C'est une des questions qui va se poser aux autorités portuaires, mais je crois qu'il faut rappeler que la crise du Covid n'est pas la crise de 2009 ni la crise de 2012. La crise de 2009, qui est une grande crise économique mondiale, la crise de 2012, notamment des dettes souveraines en Méditerranée, ne peut pas être comparable à la crise du Covid. La crise du Covid est d'abord une crise de l'impossibilité de consommer, et ensuite une dégradation de l'ambiance économique. Là où en 2009, comme en 2012, on était plutôt sur des remises en cause véritablement lourdes des fonctionnements économiques. on va revenir à la slide d'avant. Voilà. Alors là, je me suis permis un peu des pronostics. Je ne suis pas un think tank, mais j'essaye de réfléchir un petit peu. Donc, on voit bien qu'à la situation du printemps, on voit bien l'effondrement de l'économie de la croisière, les difficultés du ferry et du ro-ro par le confinement, l'impossibilité des consommateurs d'aller au supermarché ou dans les lieux de distribution diverses, l'arrêt total des ventes de voitures, la mise à l'arrêt de plusieurs secteurs industriels, par contre un petit peu la continuité des trafics de grains en Méditerranée notamment. Alors voilà la vision, encore une fois, je vous laisse regarder, j'ai mis des feux rouges, des feux oranges et des feux verts ou jaunes. Et là, je me dis, voilà, en fait, on est clair que l'été va être un petit peu rude encore et on peut peut-être espérer sur l'automne des situations plus favorables. C'est encore une fois un jugement, mais on voit à peu près comment le déconfinement d'abord sur cette fin de printemps et début d'été va aider des secteurs à repartir. Et si on repart à l'automne, je ne pars pas d'une situation avec un vaccin, je pars simplement d'une vie qui retrouve un peu de la normalité. Pas mal de secteurs peuvent retrouver des activités meilleures, ce qui a un impact sur les ports. Prenons par exemple le cas des ventes de voitures. On voit bien que le vente de voitures qui peut être par contre un arbitrage difficile pour les ménages, qui pourrait repousser à beaucoup plus loin par exemple la reprise des secteurs automobiles, là où le tourisme de ferry ou la conteneurisation peuvent retrouver par contre des phénomènes beaucoup plus rapides. Pour finir, on va aller à la dernière feuille. Alors voilà, on l'a déjà dit, les prévisions, évidemment, je ne vais pas détailler, mais voilà, quel est l'avenir? Est-ce que c'est moins 13% ou c'est moins 36%? On pourrait considérer que le déconfinement européen tel qu'il est en train de se mettre en place peut amener à un scénario optimiste, c'est-à-dire une crise importante, mais pas catastrophique. C'est peut-être une des leçons, évidemment, il ne faut pas qu'il y ait de retour de la pandémie, mais c'est peut-être une vision qu'on peut avoir pour demain. Et je crois que je finis par une slide à la fin, il me semble. Ah oui, je vous ai mis le ferry. Allez-y, on va bouger d'un cran, parce que tous les ports de Méditerranée, on est impacté par ça. La slide suivante. Pour rappeler les volumes, hein, si on prend que le Maroc, hein, le Maroc, ça fait 12 environ, vous voyez à peu près une quinzaine de millions, voire une vingtaine de millions de passagers. Il est évident qu'une saison touristique relativement normale, notamment Sardaigne, Sicile, Corse et Baléares, et puis l'Adriatique, serait bienvenue pour nos autorités portuaires et l'activité des compagnies maritimes. C'est un choix politique d'autoriser cet été en fait un retour à une mobilité, même si elle sera un peu particulière. Mais je crois qu'il faut, ça fait partie aussi du déconfinement, c'est d'autoriser finalement à ce tourisme européen de reprendre sa place, et ce qui est quand même relativement important dans le fonctionnement de nos ports. Je laisse de côté la croisière qui est beaucoup plus spécifique, mais en tout cas peut-être pour les ferries qui représentent quand même une grosse activité portuaire. Espérons un avenir un avenir relativement pas rose, mais en tout cas acceptable pour cet été. Et je finis à la fin sur une grande perspective. Voilà, en fait, où on en est. On voit bien que le déconfinement sur mai-juin permet un retour à une forme de, non pas de normalité, mais au moins de retour à quelque chose. On va avoir une saison de vacances occidentale qui va être peut-être perturbée, mais un retour à la consommation. Encore une fois, ce n'est pas un effondrement économique comme les autres crises de 2008, de 2012 ou celles qu'on a connues avant. C'est un moment de grande gêne mondiale et très problématique, mais on n'est pas dans une remise en cause de l'économie en tant que telle. Et puis pour la fin de l'année, peut-être un espoir d'une résolution de l'essentiel de la pandémie avant même le vaccin, et peut-être un retour à la situation normale. Alors, j'essaye pas de couvrir de rose l'avenir, mais avec un peu de bon sens et un peu de vision, on peut voir que voilà, on a subi un énorme choc parce qu'on se l'est imposé par le confinement. Maintenant, encore une fois, ce n'est qu'un confinement. Ça peut, même si ça remet en cause des pans entiers de l'économie, ce n'est pas un effondrement économique tel qu'on l'a connu, et on est tous, et peut-être on perd aussi de la mémoire économique. 2008-2009 avait été véritablement terrible parce que là, on avait des fondamentaux qui avaient été vraiment remis en cause d'une manière très importante. Donc j'essaye de rester sur cette notion d'espoir et ce soleil couchant au levant sur un port, qui n'est sûrement pas un port de Méditerranée, mais en tout cas qui montre qu'on peut peut-être avoir une vision optimiste pour le futur, même si je sais que le choc a été dur pour les compagnies maritimes et les tissus portuaires dans le monde comme en Méditerranée. Merci à tous. J'espère avoir parlé pas trop vite pour nos traducteurs.
Thank you, Paul, also for your very interesting proposal and for this message of optimism. Although we are quite behind the schedule, I would like to give the floor to some of our participants who already wanted to intervene. First, I would like to ask Camille Bourgeon from IMO, with whom I already had an exchange yesterday, to take the floor, please, and elaborate a little bit on the issue I was raising before about how COVID-19 does IMO expect that it will impact on the decarbonization trend that the shipping sector had already started before the crisis. So, Camille, if you are around, I will ask my team to open your microphone so that you can intervene.
Me now. Thank you, Francesc. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Francesc, for organizing this webinar, and thank you for giving me the floor. My colleague Julian Abril will provide a detailed presentation on IMO's response to COVID-19 later today, but I will just update on recent developments that regards the IMO greenhouse gas agenda, and I follow on one of the points raised also by Patrick earlier today. Well, as you know, MEPC 75 and also the greenhouse gas intersessional working group that was supposed to take place the week before have been postponed. They were supposed to take place in March and April, and they were expected to be important meetings for GHG emissions from shipping. So in terms of rescheduling formal IMO meetings, the IMO Council of Member States is currently discussing the prioritization and the reconstruction of the IMO meeting schedule, and this is ongoing now. There's a correspondence council session that is taking place until July, and we can feel that there's a general agreement so far for identifying GHG as a priority issue, but we'll see what comes out of this council session. In general, I'd like to remind that IMO remains committed to implement the 2018 initial IMO greenhouse gas strategy and also its program of follow-up actions up to 2023. You may have followed the recent developments and seen that the focus is now on developing short-term GHG reduction measures for existing ships with the target of at least 40% carbon intensity reduction by 2030 set up in the strategy. And several proposals are on the table. They're looking at the technical efficiency, but also the operational efficiency of the ship. You have, for example, proposals that include a mandatory rating of ships. We envisage to organize a virtual informal meeting in beginning of July to keep the GHG momentum and also to progress discussions on the short-term measures. And we're very encouraged by the fact that many member states are actually currently discussing with each other to facilitate future agreements when a formal meeting will be held later this year, hopefully. And we're confident that IMO member states will be able to reach a global agreement on short-term measures to reach the 40% target by 2030 this year, in line with the strategy and with the timelines that are set out in the strategy. In parallel, we have been continuing our work on other greenhouse gas reduction measures. Since mid-March, all the IMO Secretariat has been working from home. Good progress is made to prepare the 4th IMO greenhouse gas study. It is still expected to be published by the end of the year, and it will provide emissions estimates for 2012 to 2018 and also projections towards 2050. In parallel, we also have in end of June the first submission deadline for 2019 fuel oil consumption data collection, which is mandatory for all ships that are above 5,000 GT for all around the world. And 2019 is the first year of collection, so that's an important step as well. And we continue our work in terms of technical cooperation and in terms of also the public-private partnership we have, which is called the Global Industry Alliance, which gathers IMO as well as a number of companies, shipping companies in particular. They're looking at how to facilitate the transition towards low carbon shipping in the future, and they've identified recently in a meeting that they will intensify their work on the ship-port interface. Well, the work continues, and to respond also to one of the points raised by Pratik, I think the appetite of the industry for a global regulatory framework on GHG emissions remain high, and IMO remains committed to implement the strategy and its long-term vision towards decarbonization of shipping remains unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Now I would like to ask if any of our panelists in this session would like to react to this. Maybe Patrick, or since you have raised the point in your presentation.
And no, thank you. Nice to see you, Camille. Hope you are doing well, and thank you for your comment. I certainly didn't want to doubt the commitment of the IMO with my comment, but it is true that we do read, let's say, conflicting views from the industry mainly, and we were on a very good momentum, I think, before the crisis happened, and we saw a lot of constructive proposals coming forward on the agenda for not only for the short-term measures where the decisions were supposed to be taken in spring and hopefully will be taken this year, but it's that broader discussion about the fuel of the future, what terms of infrastructure are we going to need for that, and the immense amount of investment that will require, of which the ship-related part is actually the smallest part, because the biggest investment will have to come on land in the supply chain, and also, of course, in the bunkering infrastructure. And with an economic crisis upon our hands, of course, that questions the ability to fund what is necessary. And we have seen the calculations that the Getting to Zero Coalition has brought in, and they are huge. Now, luckily, we do still see that commitment from, let's say, the leading parts in the industry to move forward. But I think we need to have that discussion as to how are we going to finance that, and maybe that part of the discussion also in IMO needs to maybe get a bit fast-tracked now as a result of the crisis. We maybe need to start earlier discussions about MBMs, about that sort of things than we were planning to do initially. But good to hear their commitment is there, absolutely.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think the pandemic generates lots of confusion, and there are questions raised, but still, I mean, I think it was very clear, made very clear by IMO member states that with this strategy in place, we have a clear vision, we have a clear framework, and now we need to accelerate. And I think the Secretary General has recalled this message several times recently. We need to accelerate the efforts, and it includes also a focus on how to support the uptake of alternative fuels and alternative propulsion systems. This is another agenda item actually on the table for the MEPC. Well, as which I hope we'll have time to consider in depth during the next session. But as I said, the priority for the moment was to finalize and hopefully approve the draft amendment for the short term. So that's why that's where we want to focus our efforts from now.
Okay, thank you, Camille and Patrick. Now I would like to give the floor to some of our participants who have raised their hand and to ask questions or to add some comments. First of all, I have the Anto Stanisic from the Ministry of Transport of Montenegro who wanted to put a question. Is he available? Well, if not, I move to another question put by Joris Claes from the Port Expertise, is a consultant. Who is a question addressed to all the panelists. It goes as follows. I will read it. It's on retail consumption that shall we not have to expect that the true dip will still have to come in the coming month, as all warehouses, distribution centers and shops, as there was no consumption for 3 months. Retail sector does not expect to pick up on the losses experienced till earliest mid-2021. The trend graphs that have been shown do not seem to consider this expectation, which will have a huge impact on shipping and port activities in the coming 6 to 12 months. So that's the comment by Joris Claes. Would somebody in the panel would like to react to this? I can repeat the question if you want me to do, or we can give the floor to Joris himself if he wants to elaborate a little bit more on this.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, I had actually 2 questions which are very much related. The fact that we are apparently over positivizing the future trends and expectations. The first one was more related to the overall international trade, whereby lots of industries are now really considering this redistribution of their production and manufacturing facilities, which will seriously impact global supply chains and transportation, and therefore also the ports. And then the second part was more related to a specific sector, namely the retail sector, whereby we may not see today the effect of the crisis in terms of shipments, but with overfilled warehouses, shops being filled up still, consumption being down, and will continue to express a downtrend in the next 2 to 6 months. also that will have an effect on shipping and port handling cargo. So that's in a nutshell my two areas.
Okay, so would anybody in the panel would like to react? Either Patrick or Olaf?
It's a bit difficult to react to this because I think what I showed was only the WTO prediction of, which then also has to take into account several scenarios. But I'm sure you're right that, if you look at the impact of different sectors, and for different sectors, they will have diverse impacts, and depending on what type of port you are and what type of business you are in, the implications may be more severe than what the general trend is predicting. My sort of analysis was only to show the general trend from a global perspective. And I don't really have detailed information that could either support or contradict what Joris is saying, but maybe Olaf has more detailed information, or Paul.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your question. I think actually most of it is probably also relating to the assessment of Paul Touré, who seemed to be fairly optimistic, an optimism that I'm not sure that I fully share. I think it's also difficult to say, of course, but if you look at the indicators that we have at the moment, I think there are certain indicators that show that this crisis might, for the shipping sector, actually be worse than the financial crisis that we've seen. In other aspects, it's not yet the case, but we don't know exactly how this is going to develop. Of course, the crisis so far has been driven by two factors: this temporary stop of export from China production, and then, of course, a temporary stop or decline of the imports, so the consumption in well, most of the Western world and Asia, of course. Now, of course, what we'll see is how this is going to develop. There were certain inventories that were depleted. There's going to be this effect, and of course there is going to be the effect of economic activity, of bankruptcies, of other economic activity that will have an impact on trade as well. So that is for the short term. Of course, for the longer term, you're right, there might be supply chains that will be reconfigured. Of course, there seem to be some political ambition to center more on some of the strategic goods, and this should be more let's say, regionalized. It should be less dependent on other countries. Well, these are, let's say, political statements. Of course, in practice, what we'll see is that a lot of supply chains are, let's say, directed by the decisions of the shippers, of the manufacturers of this world. So that, I think, will drive the whole discussion on reshoring or not. There might be a tendency, we already see this, and this might continue, and this crisis might actually accelerate it. But of course, as others have said, and that is my final word, a lot of it is still really very uncertain.
I just interrupt one thing because of the example of retail mentioned, and I know that our president is on the call as well. As you know, IPH has a Mediterranean president, Santiago Garcia Milla from Port of Barcelona. With him, we had discussions before the crisis already about business as unusual. I think this also emphasizes or reinforces actually the plea for ports to be a lot more closely involved, let's say, with the actual industry and with trade than we are before. And that relates to what I said in the slide. We're obsessed with volume in the shipping industry. And I know Santiago will like what I'm saying now because it's one of his main main principles. And it's actually maybe another reason now to have a much closer relationship between port authorities and industries, whether it's retail or whether it's others, and sort of reinvent the business concept that we are working on, which so far has been, boxes and number of people in the cruise industry. So that maybe calls for a rethink the way we do business.
Thank you both, Patrick and Olaf, for responding. I think we are all in a situation where we have lots of questions, and only in the coming months, up to a year, I think we will see the true trends reflecting in different industries, and that also will reflect in the shipping and the port industries.
Okay, thank you. And now we have just time for a last question. I would like to announce as well that since we are much behind the schedule, we will try to shorten the very last session, the concluding session, in order to give more time to discussions. So I suggest to take this last question now and then have just a very quick 5-minute break just to stretch and refresh a little bit, and then we continue with the next session. So now I would like to give the floor to the representative of the Ministry of Transport of Montenegro. Please, Mr. Anton Stanisic, the floor is yours. Okay, I think we lost him. So it's time to for a short 5-minute breaks. Maybe we will have the opportunity to raise this question again in the next session, and let's restart again in 5 minutes time. Thank you. Hello, welcome back. We're going to start the second session, and now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Philippe Guillaumet, Secretary General of the MedPorts Association, who will be moderating this session. So thank you, Philippe. The floor is yours.
Merci Francesc, bonjour à tous, j'espère que la communication est bonne et que vous m'entendez. C'est un grand plaisir pour moi de pouvoir modérer cette deuxième session. C'est un grand plaisir pour moi de travailler au nom de la MedPort Association avec vous, l'Union pour la Méditerranée. Je crois que nous avons déjà commencé et nous allons poursuivre notre collaboration et avec des résultats concrets et des résultats, je pense, utiles pour beaucoup. Je crois que nous allons sur cette session, et je vais très rapidement, bien sûr, laisser la parole à nos éminents experts, mais je voudrais quand même souligner en fait l'incroyable réactivité et agilité en fait que les ports de Méditerranée ont démontré pendant cette période de crise particulièrement grave. Nous avons su tous collectivement maintenir l'activité tout en assurant la sécurité des travailleurs portuaires. Et je pense que c'est important de le souligner. Au sein de la MedPort Association, nous avons constamment entretenu le dialogue entre tous les membres et qui représente aujourd'hui à peu près 70% du trafic portuaire en Méditerranée. Donc, ça commence à être important. Et nous avons tous ensemble montré que justement, nous avions cette capacité en fait à réagir et à être proactifs pendant cette crise. Alors, cette session-là va justement commencer à aborder finalement le futur, hein, ce qui va se passer bientôt pour les ports, pour le transport maritime. Et donc, c'est important de laisser la place justement aux experts pour nous expliquer un peu de quoi demain sera fait. Je vais juste finir en disant que la MedPort Association, comme nombre de personnes qui nous écoutent le savent, la MedPort Association est là pour travailler sur le collectif et nous sommes assurés qu'il n'y aura de reprise réelle que si nous agissons collectivement. Et c'est pour ça que nous souhaitons, nous, au travers du travail qui est fait dans nos comités techniques, préparer et faciliter justement la reprise. Et c'est bien la facilitation dont il va être question tout de suite avec le premier de nos intervenants, à qui je vais très rapidement, bien sûr, laisser maintenant la parole. Alors, nous avons donc le chef de la facilitation, justement, qui travaille à l'Organisation Maritime Internationale, Monsieur Julian Garcia, qui va prendre la parole tout de suite. Puis, il sera suivi de quelqu'un que j'ai la chance de connaître depuis maintenant quelques temps, Marc Azaf, de la CNUSED. Oui. Et puis après, nous aurons monsieur, je vais essayer d'être très prudent sur la prononciation, Osilovski de la DG Move. Et enfin, nous finirons par madame Eleni Asteriou, qui est policy officer à la DG Move de la Commission européenne. Alors, quels sont les principaux sujets qui vont être abordés là par nos quatre intervenants? Donc, les recommandations en termes de facilitation, comment le transport maritime va pouvoir de nouveau servir l'ensemble des marchés, donc en Méditerranée, en Europe, mais aussi bien sûr, quels vont être les principaux changements hein, dans ce transport maritime. À la suite de ces présentations, nous aurons un rapide tour de table entre les autorités portuaires, notamment membres de la MedPort Association, qui nous feront part en fait de leur expérience et de leurs projections face au Covid. Voilà, je vais pas dire plus que ça. Je me félicite de constater que nous avons plus de 150 personnes qui nous suivent actuellement. Pour la France, c'est bientôt l'heure du déjeuner et je sais que c'est très important, mais pour d'autres pays, on n'en a pas encore, donc c'est un très beau chiffre. Et je tiens à souligner la grande participation des ports de Méditerranée à cette conférence, cette grande mobilisation. Il y a, comme je vous les ai dit, 150 participants venant des 5 continents. C'est très positif et le travail qui a été mené par l'Union pour la Méditerranée et la Medport Association porte ses fruits. Tout de suite, si Monsieur Julian Garcia, chef de la facilitation à l'Organisation maritime internationale, est prêt, est-ce qu'on peut lui donner la parole? Julian, je vais demander à nos techniciens. Voilà. Bonjour Julian. Buenos días. Et merci pour votre présentation. Vu qu'on a pris beaucoup de retard, je demanderai à tous les speakers, c'est le rôle d'un modérateur, de bien respecter le temps de parole qui avait été défini, en vous remerciant et en vous écoutant avec beaucoup d'attention. Julian, c'est à vous.
That's fine. Thank you very much. And very good morning, good afternoon to all. I would like to ask, if you can put the first slide of my presentation on the screen. That's fine. Thank you very much. As my colleague Camille has mentioned before, IMO we have been working in the Secretariat since March from home, and we have had like 2 main actions. One is to prepare the organization to the return to the normality for seminars and meetings in IMO, but at the same time we have been working hard to provide assistance to maritime industry and member states in order to minimize as much as possible the impact of COVID-19 to the maritime traffic. I'm going to explain now the measures we have taken so far. Next slide, please. You can see there an overview of the presentation. I'm going to speak first of what technical advice we have disseminated for member states and maritime industry, and we have issued through IMO circular letters. Another very important topic is the importance of human factor and the well-being of seafarers. This is one priority for the International Maritime Organization and for the Secretary General. Also, I'm going to speak about the collaboration we are currently developing with shipping industry, with other UN agencies, and also give you some information on where you can find more information in our website. This, as you can see, this is what we are doing so far. And you can imagine that this pandemic, it will have a big impact in IMO instruments. And this is something that we will have to discuss in future meetings in the different committees and council. But this will take some time, and it will have an impact on instruments like SOLAS Convention, but in particular to the Facilitation Convention. We will need to update what is the Facilitation Convention to reflect what we have learned from the COVID-19. Next slide, please. You can see in this slide the list of the circular letters that IMO has issued so far. To facilitate the management of the information, we have issued as a circular 4204 and numerous of addendum, up to 18 so far. The first one is we issued in January and provides information and guidance on precautions to be taken to minimize risk to seafarers, passengers, and others on board ships from COVID-19. And this information was based on the recommendations provided by the WHO. Addendum 1 was related to implementation and enforcement of relevant IMO instruments. This circular in particular gives to flag state authorities, port state authorities, and control regimes, companies and ship masters, the mandate that they need to cooperate in the current context of the outbreak to ensure that where appropriate, passengers can be embarked and disembarked, cargo operations can occur, ships can enter and depart shipyards for repair and survey, and storage and supplies can be loaded. Addendum 2 is a joint statement between IMO and WHO on the response to the COVID-19 outbreak. And the main aspect that I can highlight at this moment is that we call the attention that they need to respect requirements of free pratique for ships and also proper care for all travelers, prevention of unnecessary delays for ships while recognizing need to prevent a spread of disease. At 3, it was operational consideration for managing COVID-19 cases outbreak on board prepared by WHO. And this circular contains WHO guidance relevant for the shipping, in particular information on passenger ships, actions prior to boarding, managing a suspected case on board a ship, or measures on board the ship. At 4 is related to the guidance for ship operators for protection of the health of seafarers. This is a guidance, a detailed guidance prepared by ICS, the International Chamber of Shipping, and is for all ships operating in international waters. At 5 is a guidance relating to the certification of seafarers and fishing vessel personnel. This is an important guidance, is to provide guidance what to do in case seafarers and fishing vessel personnel see that their certificates is expired, and it's like a guidance to take a pragmatic and practical approach to both member states and also in particular to port state control authorities, what to do in case they find seafarers with the certificates that are expired. At 6 is related a preliminary list of recommendations for governments prepared by the broad group of global industry. And the recommendations addresses providing access to berths in ports, measures to facilitate crew changes in ports, measures to facilitate port and related operations, and measures to ensure health protection in ports. And in particular urges to designate professional seafarers, regardless of nationality, as key workers. At 7 addresses difficulties faced by ship builders, equipment suppliers, ship owners, surveyors, and service engineers in respect of timely delivery of ships due to COVID-19 pandemic. At 8 contains a joint statement of the port state control regimes, recommending all the port state control regimes a practical and flexible approach, recognizing that exceptions, waivers, and extension to certificates have been granted by many flag states, and relevant information has been already circulated by IMO. Please, next slide. At 9 is a joint statement between IMO and WCO, the World Customs Organization, on the integrity of the global supply chain during the pandemic. And it is requested in particular to Customs Administration and port state authorities to establish a coordinated and proactive approach together with all concerned agencies to ensure integrity and continued facilitation of global supply chain so that flow of goods by sea is not unnecessarily disrupted. At 10 is a joint statement between IMO, WHO, and ILO on three aspects: medical certificates of seafarers, ship sanitation certificates, and medical care of seafarers in the context of the pandemic. This provides guidance on what to do with the certificate of medical certificates that is going to expire, also the expired of ship sanitation certificates, and in particular the need to provide access to seafarers for medical care in ports. At 11, disseminate the European Commission guidelines on protection of health, repatriation and travel arrangements for seafarers, passengers and other personnel on board ships. At 12 is the declaration of by port authorities roundtable members. At 13 addresses the needs of workers in the offshore energy sector. At 14 is an important guidance prepared by the maritime industry, establishing a framework of protocols to facilitate the crew exchange. At 15 provides information guidance on the use of PPE. Is prepared by IMO based on WHO information. At 16 provides further guidance on the use of PPE and risk assessment approach on the use of the PPE. At 17 is related to information for those responsible of port state control, port community systems and a single window to prepare the new era. And it's not included in the list, but yesterday we issued at 18 related to the joint statement by IMO, ICAO and ILO calling for urgent action on crew changes and key worker designation for sea and air workers. Next slide, please. Next slide. As mentioned before, the support of seafarers is a priority, and the Secretary General of IMO established in the Secretariat a seafarers crisis team that is continuously providing assistance to seafarers in individual cases. We receive emails and information from seafarers or families, and we try to use our networking and diplomatic access to try to support and provide assistance and find solutions for the problems. Mainly the problems are related to the difficulties on the crew exchange and also the problem of access to medical care. We have also, the Secretary General also have issued a special message to support of seafarers, and we have supported initiative like the Port Sound, the Whistles, also mentioned by Patrick in this previous session. Next slide, please. We have also established a strong collaboration with the shipping industry during this time, and we have issued by means of IMO circulars some of the guidance prepared by the industry, as I mentioned before. We also participate actively in an industry Corona strategy group that meets every week. And we are in constant cooperation with and consultation with international governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations. Please, next slide. We are also participating with other UN agencies. In particular, there is a new interagency coordination system in UN related to the crisis management team. We are working in a working group on travel and trade working group related to reopening borders and longer-term health implications for immigration and border management. We are also participating in the emergency committee of the WHO, and we have close cooperation with the UN agencies. Next slide. And this you can find there some links where you can find information relevant to the what IMO has produced so far, in particular the information provided by member states on the actions taken and national actions to minimize or restrictions to the maritime traffic. And with that one, I would conclude and also like to reinforce that the main priority today for the IAM organization is to provide assistance to the seafarers. From June, more than 150,000 of crew changes have to be made monthly, and this is a huge challenge due to the restriction of the imposed by national authorities. But this is really a priority because seafarers have extended their contracts for more than 3 months, and like the last deadline of extension of certificates is middle of June. And after that one, it can be, we can see problems with ships and with that they don't have enough money for sailing. Thank you. Over to you.
Merci beaucoup, Juliane, pour cette présentation. Et je pense qu'il est toujours très bon de rappeler, on a commencé notre webinaire par les volumes, par les marchandises, mais derrière, il y a des hommes. Il y a des hommes qui nous assurent ce transport maritime, et il est bon que effectivement on mette le point là-dessus avec l'ensemble des recommandations pour une homogénéisation justement des mesures et règlements. Dom, il sera encore question, je pense, dans la présentation. Je vais laisser Marc le temps à Marc de se préparer. Dans la présentation de Marc Azaf, qui est donc chef du développement des ressources, du département des ressources humaines à la CNUSED. Marc, est-ce que tu es prêt?
Oui, bonjour.
Voilà, bonjour Marc, je te remercie pour ta présence, et je vais donc te laisser tout de suite la place en te demandant à toi aussi de respecter, s'il te plaît, les 10 minutes maximum si ça t'est possible. Merci Marc.
Tout à fait. Merci beaucoup Philippe. I will continue in English, and if in the meantime, when I start, if you can pull out the PowerPoints, please. And I would like to thank the Union for the Mediterranean and the MedPorts Association for bringing me in this panel. And without waiting and all protocol observed, I'll say hi to all the participants, and we can go to slide number 2 in full screen. Yes, please, if you can put the slideshow on, and slide number 2. Yeah, very good. It's coming. I don't have it on my screen. Huh? I don't know if it's working. Yes. Yeah, now full screen, please, and slide number 2. Maybe you have to push on enable editing. Yeah, okay. Slide 2, perfect. It's not full screen, excellent. So let's look at the background in relation to all the previous speakers. What is very amazing in this time is we're talking about measures that were taken because of this COVID-19 around 216 countries, areas, and territories as defined by the UN at a speed that is light speed, just something incredible. And with this world that we all know now, closed border, restricted travel, grounded airplanes, the physical distancing, yeah, Patrick was mentioning about it, containment and quarantine. And the expectations from the Statistical Commission of the UN, minus 27%, trade value down. When you look at the cover of The Economist on the left side, you could see the globe, and with the big name on it, closed. Not so long ago, years ago, they were talking about the gated globe because of the commercial disputes, but now we are completely closed, and consequence is choking off to global supply chains, including the one on oceans, and new vocabulary to the likes of the Great Depression, or they call it the Great Lockdown. It's an economic fallout near standstill. So we have this movement of the goods that is blocked, and also the workers that need actually to keep the world economy alive. Let's look at slide 3, please. So the background, we have to remember what we, sorry, this is slide, yeah, there's something on the, yeah, okay. The title is different, but it's the main goal. What we have to look at together with port authorities around the world is the main goal, is that the port operations are continuing under this pandemic or whatever pandemic we might be facing in the future. We have to remember that ports are national strategic assets. We need to keep those supply chains open, in particular for vital merchandise, but that needs to be defined also. What is a vital merchandise for which country, which region? Allow this maritime trade to continue and protect the critical staff in their daily tasks. And the intervention from my colleague from IMO was very good in that sense. The ports are front row actors to stop the spread, but let the goods through. Slide 4, sorry, the next one. So what we have done at the level of UNCTAD, and in particular the Train for Trade port network that some members know, is that we, from the very beginning, and we started mid-March, we're in the lockdown at the office, we started to collect and be in touch with our members to collect documentation on measure observation, what has been done, and I'll just go through a few bullet points that serves as generic guidelines. And I want to thank also our port partners, including the Port of Marseille Force, Dublin and Valencia, I know they're online, for providing this documentation and our members. The physical distancing, okay, that is quite common. Preventive hygiene measures, interaction, trying to limit the interaction between onboard, onshore staff, and actually that led to some issues at the time. The way of communicating with the quayside, the use of digital documentation, absolutely, to limit the human contact to the minimum, provide sufficient protective equipment, and we know, in particular in Europe, there was a lot of issues on that, with stocks, no stocks, at the States level, in the port level, face mask, gloves, and sanitizer, and so on. Introduce sanitation routine of surfaces in regular contact with hands. And I've put here this one, facilitate seafarers rotation as per IMO protocols for what, and this is the new one done with several agencies to comply with international maritime regulation. We have to remember that we're talking about 1.2 million seafarers out there and a rotation of 150 to 200,000. That is problematic. Next slide, please. Establish points of controls in the perimeter of port area. I know a lot of ports are calculating every square meter they have to use it for efficiency, but this is something that probably gonna have to look at in more details. Equipment to measure temperature. I've seen in some ports in the Middle East, they're using those smart helmets where the police officers can measure temperature and other vitals at distance, 6 meters distance away. So they're starting to sell them. Establish waste disposal policies, fumigation, disinfection, the tracking of passengers information system. And I think it was reminded by one of the speakers, Patrick, that how far do we want to go in the tracking and what is the national regulation, international regulation about it? Define isolated holding and testing areas for the COVID, decontamination, delivery of essential medical supply, as well as fuel, water, spare parts, and all the likes. Institute a protocol for disembarking passengers who requiring immediate medical care. And this is again under the ILO Maritime Labour Convention of 2006, because in times of crisis, we also have to remember we are linked by those international conventions. And I've put in the gray area the disinfect and monitor cargo. We do not have much information on that, and we know that some places they do have some special equipment to do it, but we would like to have more info. Next slide. Based on all those elements, we also propose a generic crisis protocol based on a color basis. So you see from green to red with different levels. And according to when you have cases in your country, all the way to the port area and the number of staff that are sick. There are much more details that you can consult. with the link that you see there under, with tft.unctad.org, and a special one on port COVID. So I will let you go through it if you're interested. This is a generic protocol to be used and put at your own pace. And I know that the WCO, World Customs Organization, and also the IAPH are proposing their protocols now, much more elaborated, with a lot of activities on communication also, which are very interesting. Next slide, please. Now, what next? That is what is at stake. What do we next? One element that we really have to remember, because it's taken granted for many people, and it's not the case in places we are working as UNCTAD with our 194 member states, is the connectivity. The connectivity, as the World Bank Group puts it, it's a public good, and we need to boost internet. There's a lot of cases where people have had problems to connect, and this is something even at the port authority level or you port community, you need to make sure that your employees, your clients, your stakeholders have this proper connectivity to organize these sessions and be able to function on the vital ones. Increased connectivity also when you look at what the World Economic Forum is saying in the data exchange of global supply chains, interoperability, and that comes to what was mentioned before, the port community systems. And also I know the World Economic Forum is pushing on blockchain, but that's for you to decide. Shorter, more diversified and regional supply chains. Yes, that's the push for it. Know how it's going to be organized and for which products we will see. Relocation, supported by advanced automation and related to labor cost reduction. We're not going to change the economic model over time. So there's still the cost effect linked to that. Port regional cooperation, I think there was some elements about it. How as a region, and this is probably going to be a very interesting question for MedPort. Is there a way we could cooperate between all those ports and to make it more resilient as a trade node in itself for that particular region? The CSR, on corporate social responsibility, we have had fantastic examples from the port authorities and port community to help out reach the most vulnerable, because they really suffered and still suffering during this crisis. Designing new policies for ports to build stronger resilience. This is the future. And the push for online training and certification, you could see already happening. The real question is to what percentage? We don't want to go from one extreme to another, from 0 to 100%, but we need to strike the right balance. And from our side, we're going to develop a new Train for Trade course based on the request we're receiving from the members that will be called Building Port Resilience Against Pandemics, because there could be others. And we'll develop it thanks to the United Nations Development Account. We have a bit of funding for that, and we'll involve our partners. And that will be proposed for all the port communities free in the future. My next slide is just to show you, if you can go to the next slide, the network. So those who have collected information in the 4 languages and our port partners that I want to thank. And I will finish with the last slide. If we can pull it with 2 links. The first link is on UNCTAD, the main web page. You see page coronavirus, where we have a lot of documentation and protocols related to trade macroeconomy policy that you can consult about coronavirus. And the second link is the one dedicated to ports and COVID under the Train for Trade program. And I want to finish by thanking you all, and also thanking the organizer for giving me access to this panel. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Marc. Je suis toujours très intéressé par votre présentation et le travail qui est fait au sein de la CNUSED, qui est vraiment très, très important pour les autorités portuaires et qui nous est très utile. D'ailleurs, je crois que la MedPort Association et nombre de ses membres ont participé à vos travaux et nous continuerons à le faire en bonne intelligence, parce qu'il est important qu'il y ait des établissements, des institutions comme ça qui puissent rassembler et diffuser des informations qui sont faites, qui sont prises, et des décisions qui sont prises dans différents ports. Donc merci. Je suis sûr que beaucoup d'interrogations montent de l'audience, mais nous garderons un certain temps à la fin pour ces questions et ces réponses. Avant de laisser la parole à Simon Silowski, donc manager responsable de programme à la DG Move, J'insiste juste sur le fait que nous avons au sein de la Medport Association édité aussi un recueil de bonnes pratiques qui ont été faits en Méditerranée, dans nos ports, et que si vous allez sur notre site, vous pourrez aussi le trouver. Et ça a été fait aussi avec l'IAPH. Patrick, si tu es encore là, nous avons travaillé aussi avec l'APH et la CNUSED pour rassembler. Donc, c'est une source d'information pour tous ceux qui souhaiteraient, je sais que quelques ports africains aussi nous écoutent, qui souhaiteraient avoir un ensemble de bonnes pratiques. Voilà, la CNUSED, l'IAPH, la Medport Association et d'autres ont rassemblé ce type d'informations. Merci Marc. Tout de suite, Simon Silowski, si vous êtes là, ben, je vais maintenant et tout de suite vous laisser la parole avec la même consigne des 10 minutes. Je vous remercie. Simon, c'est à vous.
Yes, thank you very much. I will also express myself in English if possible. I will not really.
Mais le français est très très bon, visiblement.
Okay, not really. I will not make a big pain for you with my French, so I will continue in English if I can. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you. So thank you for the invitation. As you said, I'm representing the European Commission, the department in charge of mobility and transport, and we are dealing in a small unit with maritime transport and logistics. And today, with my colleague Nelly Asteriou, we are planning to report you some the most, let's say, the most important measures which were taken at the EU level to combat, to address the coronavirus crisis. If you can, the presentation is on. Because I'm sure you addressed this point very in detail in the morning session. I will not repeat your discussions, but in general, according to the latest Commission estimates, it's forecasted that the EU economy will shrink by 7%, which is huge. This will be a huge impact for everybody, for all the businesses, including maritime sector. Of course, the pandemic hit the maritime very much, all segments, but not equally. Some segments are more touched, like the passenger transport cruise segment. We were in contact with many stakeholders to think together how we can help them, how we can solve the problems. And as a result of this discussion with different stakeholders, voilà, there is a set of measures which have been proposed at the EU level by the Commission together with the Parliament and the Council, and also by the other EU institutions. In my presentation today, in our presentation today, I will focus more on the horizontal measures, economic measures, which have been conducted by the EU, and my colleague Nelly will report more specific actions, more specific for the maritime transport. If you can move the slide, please. We know that over the last couple of weeks, there was a very specific support needed. Immediate support, very urgent support, in principle, to provide liquidity to the companies, to the industry, to the economic operators, and that was the immediate response from the EU. We call them relief measures, so very short term, very targeted, just to keep economic operators alive. This was also the case, of course, for the maritime and in general for the whole supply chain, because, of course, the role of the transport sector was essential to maintain the supplies of the food and other health material and other important merchandise to the citizens. But then for long term and medium term, we need to think about the recovery measures. And this is also my pleasure to announce that today, the President of the Commission, Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will have a speech in the European Parliament today, just after our webinar. I think the latest information I got, it's 1:30, I think. And when she will report the plans of the Commission, the proposal of the Commission, better to say, for the recovery package, financial recovery package as a part of the multi-annual financial framework for the next 7 years. So I think that is definitely worth following up, and I would invite you to have a look at the European Parliament's website to see what the Commission is proposing for the next years. Okay, we can move slides. As I said, for the short-term measures, there was a set of very, very important, let's say, economic instruments conducted or launched by the European Commission, and also together with the other EU institutions. I would mention the most important ones, like Coronavirus Response Investment Initiative, that was briefly about activating unspent cohesion funds. So that was a very quick help for the EU member states, especially those which are really taking benefit of the EU cohesion policy, to redirect the priorities and to provide aid to the most let's say vulnerable sectors. And the total value of this instrument is estimated at the level of 37 billion euro. In general, I had a look at one of the Commission websites which calculated the general impact of all the measures which were undertaken by the European Union, and that was really incredible amount because this website mentions 3.5 trillion euro of funds mobilized to address the coronavirus crisis. This is incredible. I think most of these, let's say, funds were mobilized by the temporary framework for state aid. As you know, in the European Union, there is a quite rigid framework for the state aid in order to ensure level playing field for all the economic operators. And then in the time of pandemics, in the times of pandemic, the Commission decided, of course, to make this framework more flexible to enable member states undertake very targeted actions to support businesses with liquidity, with specific state aid schemes. So this measure itself generated almost 2.5 trillion euro in different member states. That's an incredible figure again. There were other very important measures. So, for example, activation of the general escape clause under the Stability and Growth Pact. So that was providing some necessary flexibility to the European fiscal framework, just to loosen the rules for the member states to let them support their economies. And also there was a new, very new instrument for temporary support to mitigate unemployment risks in an emergency. SURE, it's called in abbreviation. This is about supporting jobs and people at work. So the value of this instrument is around 1 billion euro. Which will be used to cover part of the expenses to be borne by member states for creating, for maintaining and extending short-term work schemes. Can you move the slides, please? All these measures are, of course, complemented by dedicated programs launched by the European Central Bank, European Investment Bank Group, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So altogether, it's a big package of financial support for the EU economy. Perhaps I will not go into the details because we don't have much time. However, if you are interested in details of this recovery packages launched by the financial institutions at the EU level, of course, we'll be happy to provide you with the relevant information. Of course, many actions are undertaken at the level of the member states. I got recently kind of document summarizing all the actions made by the EU member states, and this document has 72 pages. So you can imagine how many different schemes to support economy and support businesses were launched in the European Union. Finally, I would like to mention also the EU funding framework, which was readapted a bit in the Connecting Europe facility, which is managed at the central EU level. We introduced some extra flexibility for the beneficiaries, not to penalize them for any delays, for example. So this is also very small measures, but very much appreciated by some beneficiaries. Of course, they couldn't really implement their projects properly during the time of the coronavirus crisis. And then, of course, we keep our financial instruments working. There are some specific instruments which are dedicated for the transport and also for the maritime sector in particular. I can mention, of course, Connecting Europe facility. This is the main instrument, but also EFSI, European Fund for Strategic Investment, European Investment Bank, own risk financing. We have very specific dedicated instruments to support transport investments. For example, we have, of course, motorways of the sea. We have transport blending, safe transport blending facility, green shipping guarantee program, future mobility program, and so on. So there is a long list of different programs which are still open, and then potential applicants can apply for their projects. Of course, I will not spend much time on it because this would be, the topic for another presentation. Now, perhaps I will invite my colleague Nelly to report specific measures. I think I saw one question from the audience. I think the question will be answered by Nelly. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Hi. Good afternoon. Kalispera from. Oui.
Allez-y, madame.
Oui. Excusez-moi. Bonsoir, Kalispera, and good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the Commission's measures in order to confront the COVID-19 outbreak. Can we move to the next slide, please? So, as Simon mentioned earlier, I would briefly present transport maritime specific measures, starting by guidelines for border management measures in order to protect health and ensure the availability of goods and essential services. Also, there is a communication from the Commission on the implementation of the green lanes under the guidelines for border management measures in order to protect health and ensure the availability of goods and essential services. Guidelines on the protection of health, repatriation and travel arrangements for seafarers. A proposal for the amendment to the Ports Service Regulation in order to give to Member States and port authorities additional flexibility to waive, reduce, suspend, or even defer port infrastructure charges. Next slide. We have also published interpretative guidelines concerning passenger rights on how certain provisions of the EU passenger rights legislation should be applied in the context of the outbreak. Another proposal was made for a regulation laying down specific and temporary measures in view of the outbreak concerning the validity of certain certificates, licenses, and authorizations, as well as the postponement of certain periodic checks and training in certain areas of transport legislation. There is also a network of national transport contact points in order to reinforce cooperation and coordination on the issues related to transport, setting up a website which provides an overview of national transport measures by country. Next slide. Finally, the exit strategy that should be mentioned is a tourism and transport package, which gradually lift the travel restrictions from 13th of May with guidelines of general principles for the gradual resumption of passenger transport and detailed recommendations for measures in the maritime sector. First of all, an overall strategy towards a recovery in 2020 and beyond, a common approach to restoring free movement and lifting restrictions at the EU internal borders in a gradual and coordinated way, a framework to support the gradual reestablishment of transport while ensuring the safety of passengers and staff, a recommendation which aims to make travel vouchers an attractive alternative to cash reimbursement for consumers, and criteria for restoring tourism activities safely and gradually for developing and also for developing health protocols for hospitality establishments such as hotels. Now I was very quick as time flies. I will give again the floor to my colleague Simon to continue, and then I will complement the last slide.
Nelly, I would suggest that we will just skip the we will skip the next slide because I already mentioned the recovery package to be announced by the president. So you can go ahead with the last slide.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Simon. Other relevant initiatives that we already took on board is from our part, a new fuel EU Maritime initiative, which is already known, in order to support the uptake of alternative fuels for maritime, to accelerate the use of electrification of short distance shipping, and to pave the way for decarbonization of marine fuels. Finally, there is the sustainable finance strategy and the taxonomy regulation as a possible support to the transition towards a sustainable recovery and the basis to assess the environmental sustainability of economic activities and investments. With that slide, we concluded our presentation in relation to the measures adopted or will be adopted by the Commission, and we would like to thank you.
Merci beaucoup Simon, merci beaucoup Elena pour cette intervention sur les mesures prises par la Commission européenne qui, on l'a vu, sont particulièrement nombreuses. À ce stade, je ne peux pas m'empêcher en tant que Méditerranéen d'encourager la Commission européenne de bien regarder ce qui se passe en Méditerranée et notamment quand on parle de CEF, de bien s'interroger sur l'intérêt de prolonger l'ensemble de ces mesures vers les pays voisins de la Méditerranée. C'est extrêmement important pour maintenir une cohésion aussi dans cette région entre l'Europe et l'Afrique. Donc voilà, c'était ma première réaction comme ça, mais merci beaucoup. Et on voit que l'effort de l'Union européenne pour soutenir l'activité est majeur et très important. Et ça me paraît évidemment aller dans le bon sens. Il y a eu en effet quelques questions. Donc je vais il est 13 h maintenant, nous sommes toujours encore très nombreux à suivre ce webinaire. Je vais toutefois maintenant laisser la parole au port. Gardez vos questions s'il vous plaît, il sera toujours temps de les poser. Nous avons quelques interventions prévues sur des thèmes bien précis des ports, des retours d'expérience qui nous paraissent très importants pour que tout le monde ait bien en tête ce qu'il s'est passé et ce qui pourrait se passer au niveau des opérations portuaires. Il me semble que c'est à ce stade-là vraiment très important. Donc, nous avons 4 thèmes qui ont été privilégiés. Nous allons avoir normalement 3 présentations sur le trafic, bien sûr. Hein. Est-ce qu'il va y avoir des nouvelles routes commerciales? Comment ont été impactées les routes commerciales? Pour cela, le port de Valence, Espagne, va nous faire une short présentation. C'est 5 minutes les présentations, donc c'est très bref. Sur les opérations, les passagers, sur les passagers, nous aurons le trafic. Pardon, excusez-moi, trafic et passagers, le port de Barcelone interviendra aussi. Puis nous aurons sur les opérations l'intervention du port de Béjaïa en Algérie. Et enfin, sur tout ce qui est question des compétences, des formations, nous allons avoir une intervention de l'Institut méditerranéen de la formation de Tunis. Voilà, la Méditerranée, c'est une rive sud, une rive nord. Donc ici, nous serons bien représentés. Donc si c'est possible, je laisserai la parole donc maintenant au port de Valence. Est-ce que c'est Juan qui est directement là ou Anna? Le port de Valence. Valencia. Le port de Valence.
Oui.
Ah, Juan est là. Juan
Hello.
Manuel.
Hello, ça va, bonjour.
Maintenant, tu as la parole. Le micro n'est pas levé, Juan, mais tu vas pouvoir, voilà.
Oui.
Juste avant, je voudrais remercier, puisque Madame Asteriou me prévient qu'elle doit nous laisser, effectivement, puisqu'elle a un webinaire qui commence aussi, la remercier chaleureusement au nom de l'Union pour la Méditerranée et de la Medport Association d'être intervenue. Eleni et Simon, thank you very much. See you later somewhere in Europe. Thank you. Juan Manuel, it's up to you. It's your turn.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you to the Medports Association and to the Union for the Mediterranean for giving us the opportunity of sharing with you a little bit how we are feeling this crisis as a port. I have prepared a very brief presentation. I don't know if it's possible to see it. And yeah, if not, I can try also to share it. Okay. So if you can go to the second slide, please. I will go quickly. Okay. As many ports in the region, we have had to cope with this COVID-19 crisis through operational messages and financial messages, and also trying to cooperate with our ports and port communities as Medports, as the UNCTAD, and also as the IIPH, who has already been mentioned. Okay, I want to talk about the operational and financial measures that we have taken, because many of us we are working that, and probably will be covered in the next presentation. So we go to the next slide. I will talk about how is this affecting to our throughput as a port. As you may know, we finished 2019 with 5.4 million TEUs and as the leading West Med container port. But just for the first quarter, we've already suffered plus than a 5% reduction in our container traffic, mainly in empty and gateway empty traffic, but also the gateway traffic for loaded containers and the transit has been suffering. That is making us, if you look to the graphic on the left of the slide, you will see how from the peak in 2019, the traffic has been slowly and now abruptly descending. And so we think we are still waiting for, we are finishing the sanitary crisis, but we probably are still waiting for a peak of the economic and also the trade crisis. We've reduced our traffic forecast consequently to -9% of for this 2019. And what we, please, next slide. We've been also following how is this affecting the price. As you may know, we have Valencia, the Valencia Container Freight Index, which is the only freight index for the Mediterranean. And we have realized that this, of course, we have also, this is a crisis of the beginning of demand, but also of offer, but also demand. And well, by the moment, the carriers are trying to keep their prices. And in fact, we think that conjuncturally it grew during the last period in April. So please, next slide. So what we are thinking now is, what about the future? So we are here with my colleague Eva Perez from Fundación Valencia Port and her team. We've been working in defining 3 possible scenarios for 2025. The first of all will be, of course, the base one, business as usual. And we think that, well, in the aftermath of the crisis, we will recover the business as it was with, well, a little bit more protectionism maybe in the way it was going in the trend that we had before. And also, well, with the same Sinocentric general trade flows. We have other one, which is much more pessimistic, which is the protectionism will increase, and with all the problems that will produce in the global economy. And of course, we want try to be optimistic in line with the messages we received from the European Commission and from other interveners before, trying to think that this is an opportunity of changing our model and also trying to imbalance or rebalance a little bit better the globalization, but also thinking on green and changing our model of growth for the coming years. So please, next slide. This brings us to to the forecast for the three scenarios. The pessimistic one, the protectionist, will lead us to a compound annual growth rate of -9% of traffic. So we will not recover the traffic as it was before the crisis. In the business as usual, we will recover, but not before the 2022. And with the optimistic view, we think that we can begin to recover in 2021, and that will give us also more steadily growth in the near future. Please, next one. But nevertheless, with the trends we've been also checking with the reality is that in any case, the reduction of the traffic will be clear. So we are facing probably a problem of overcapacity, of imbalance between offer and demand in the Med. So we will probably have to think that in the coming year we will have to suffer some adjustment in the region in terms of fleet allocation, and also problems the carrier will suffer with this imbalance. Please, last slide. Last one, please. Okay, so what we can expect from the container market? Many of these ideas have been already mentioned from previous speakers. of course, the trade, there's a big risk of trade contraction. And also we will have problems for the carriers, that probably they will have problems in for adjusting, need to adjust capacity. Also, they will have problems with the results, and that will be problems already also for traffic crossing the Mediterranean. We will suffer. We will see probably more integration, more we'll maybe move to only 2 alliances, reducing also the capacity for the Med traffic, and integration of the carriers in the door-to-door logistic change in order to gain competitiveness. And also we'll have some by-side problems with for the environment, as with the prices of the fuel foils, we are probably they will have a lack of incentive to invest in the scrubbers or retrofit the fleet. And also more and more we are seeing already that more and more carriers are avoiding the Med route for the Good Hope route, and that will also affect the traffic in the whole of the Mediterranean. So, and that's all I wanted to share. Thank you very much for the time. Hope not to have taken a lot of it. And thank you for this initiative, because I think it's very important that we share this experience all together within the Mediterranean.
Merci. Gracias, muchas gracias, Juan Manuel, pour cette présentation. Je crois qu'elle était particulièrement intéressante. La crainte des autorités portuaires, et je pense que tu l'as bien signalé sur la fin, c'est justement de perdre finalement quelque part le bénéfice de l'alternative que représentent les ports de Méditerranée pour la desserte des marchés européens avec nos collègues de la rive sud de la Méditerranée. Il est important que toute cette zone reste particulièrement compétitive. C'est ce que nous faisons, hein. Juan, tu en es un des acteurs les plus impliqués au sein de la Medport Association. Nous continuons à travailler pour que cette Méditerranée continue à pouvoir desservir de façon efficiente, de façon environnementale friendly, on va dire, les marchés européens. Donc c'est particulièrement important, et je trouve ta présentation particulièrement pertinente pour notre webinaire. Je vais tout de suite passer la parole normalement à notre collègue de Barcelone qui va, puisque Juan s'est un peu attaché particulièrement au trafic de conteneurs, à Jordi, donc notre collègue de Barcelone, du port de Barcelone, qui est chef de la stratégie du port de Barcelone, pour un overview de tous l'ensemble des trafics, et puis peut-être aussi un petit focus sur les passagers, avant de passer la parole à nos collègues du port de Béjaïa et de Imed Samit en Tunisie. Jordi, si tu es là.
Yes, can you hear me?
Voilà, Jordi, tu m'en voudras pas pour te souhaiter devant tout le monde un joyeux anniversaire aujourd'hui. Donc, puisque tu as maintenant 36 ans, et c'est vraiment un grand plaisir pour moi de te souhaiter en direct.
Un peu moins. Okay, thank you, Philippe. Thank you for the congratulations. I will try to go fast as we are behind schedule. I guess the only ones that are not eating lunch is the Spaniards, because the rest should be eating lunch, so we are keeping them from lunch. Let me say just four basic things in less than 10 minutes. First, say that predicting the future is a very risky business. If we look backwards to the past now, and we see the latest revolutions, crises that have happened, very few people predicted them. When Toyota reinvented logistics and supply chain in the 50s, nobody predicted that this would happen in a country like Japan that just lost the Second World War. When China became the factory of the world in the 90s, I would say that at the end of the 70s, nobody predicted that. Very few people predicted the financial crisis in 2008. And very few people predicted that a crisis like the coronavirus could have the impact that it had on the economies and the logistics sector. No? So sometimes better than hearing to people like me, like at the head of strategy, it's better to look at artists like Steven Spielberg, series like Black Mirror, that sometimes they tend to predict future better than us. Okay, this as an introduction. Let me say that the way I see it, this crisis will probably speed up some trends that we were already seeing before it happened. If we look at the main drivers of growth of maritime trade in the last 30 years, basically thinking about the Mediterranean and basically about Europe. If we see at the 4 or 5 main drivers, most of them were already showing some decline before the COVID-19 crisis. No? The 4 main drivers behind the increase of traffic in the Med, but also in Europe in the last years were an increase of containerization. It has been stable, pretty stable at 12% of maritime traffic in the last 10 years. Liberalization of trade, thanks to the transfer of production to Asian countries. We have also seen a decline since 2007. The growth of liquid bulks, basically oil and refined products, growth of chemicals, and growth of the automotive industry. All these sectors that have fostered the growth of maritime trade in the region in the last 30 years, we're already seeing signs of decline before the COVID crisis. Cruise business and passengers was another sector that had been growing, and this is probably something that we have to treat separately. So I think that the COVID-19 crisis will probably speed up these trends that already existed in the past, and as a summary, we're never going to see, at least in Europe, the increase in trade in containers, in cars, in liquid bulks that we have seen in the last 30 years. No? Second thing I wanted to say, what have this crisis demonstrated? 4 or 5 things, I believe. One, global supply chains work pretty well. And despite shortages of masks and some health equipment, in general, we haven't seen shortages of basic goods, of consumer goods in most countries, even with lockdown. So I would say that global supply chains work pretty well. And those thinking that this crisis will bring back industry to Western Europe, et cetera, I'm not so sure, because they work pretty well. Okay. Second, e-commerce. E-commerce, now that people have been in lockdown, hundreds of millions of people that were not using e-commerce have been used to using e-commerce. So this will foster even more the growth of e-commerce in the coming years as a consumer pattern. Second, as I said, trade will not grow, at least in Europe, the way it has been doing for the last 30 years. Not at all. I'm not expecting this at least until we retire for sure. So expect low growth of international trade and maritime transport. I would say another thing, but has nothing to do with, in theory, it has little to do with our business. Gender inequality. We have seen that countries that have been managed by women have reacted better to this crisis than others. We will work in a sector where men are basically all executive posts, very few women. And we have seen when it comes to treating this crisis, countries with women on top of the government in New Zealand, in Scandinavian countries, in Asian countries have managed better this crisis. So this is a lesson I think that we can think about. And fourth, disruptions are here to stay. I mean, we're going to see disruptions more frequent than before because the world is very interconnected. So something that happens in the other extreme of the planet affects us. So we have to get ready to these disruptions in forms of cyber attacks, health problems, climate change. But this is going to be more frequent than it used to be before. Third, in order to cope with this scenario, what do we need to do? I believe as sports, I would say that there's 4 or 5 things that we would all agree that are the driving forces of our changes for the coming years. One, sustainability of supply chains, very important. Second, flexibility. Supply chains, customers, exporters require flexibility, very important. Third, digitalization. Fourth, diversification of port activity, very important in order not to rely on a single segment of traffic. Fifth, resilience, being able to adapt to these disruptions, more often disruptions. So we have to be resilient, be able to respond and adapt to these disruptions. And finally, we all talk a lot about technology and digitalization, but human capital is going to be extremely important. No? And what is going to make a difference between some ports, because we all tend to have a same level of digitalization, is human capital. So investing in human capital is extremely important right now. And finally, as the fourth issue, with all these trends and how we should react, no? And making a very fast revision of the different segments of traffic imports, where we see that which could grow, which could decrease, despite the situation we are now. I think in 2 years' time, the cruise business, the passenger business has a good perspectives. I know that saying this today is risky in the way we are, but I believe that when this is over, and one day it will be over in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year, the cruise and the touristic sector has an important perspectives, and in the Mediterranean more than in other places. This is the only place in the world, I would say, where you have very different countries in a very short distance, in a very short dimension. So this is something that we should all benefit: North of Africa, Western Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, Southern Europe. So this has good perspectives. Some solid bulks, cereals, agro-food. This has also good perspectives in both shores of the Mediterranean, I would say. RoRo, I think RoRo between the North of Africa, Southern Europe, between Western Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, has very good perspectives as well. Agro-food production in North of Africa is growing. Car manufacturers are setting up factories in North of Africa. All this gives a good perspective for RoRo traffic between the two shores of the Mediterranean. And honestly, I see bad perspectives for liquid bulks, chemicals, refined products from oil. And containers, I don't see it growing very much or at all in the coming years. I know there's some drivers that could make it grow. There's still some goods that are being containerized: cereals, soya beans, iron waste can go into containers. This can make some growth. E-commerce can boost a little bit the growth of container sector, but there's so many drivers, at least in Europe, I would say in Europe more than in the rest of the Mediterranean, that push container trade down, that I don't see the others compensating these drivers. And I'm going to leave it here. Okay. Thank you, Philippe. And I give back the floor to you. Thank you.
Merci, Jordi. Merci, Jordi, pour cette présentation. C'est toujours particulièrement intéressant d'avoir ce point de vue sur les chaînes logistiques et de mettre en avant le fait que les autorités portuaires et que la chaîne logistique dans son ensemble a continué à fonctionner, et les autorités portuaires sont loin de ne pas être responsables de cette qualité-là et d'avoir réussi justement à maintenir finalement l'approvisionnement, parce que si en Europe nous étions et dans de nombreux endroits dans le monde, tous à la recherche ou des denrées alimentaires ou des produits pour se protéger, et que nous les avons trouvés, c'est bien parce que les chaînes logistiques aussi ont continué à fonctionner et que les ports ont continué à bien travailler, tout en préservant la sécurité à la fois des marins et des travailleurs portuaires. Donc, merci beaucoup pour cette présentation. Patrick est en train, Verhoeven de l'IAPH est en train malheureusement de nous quitter, donc je voudrais le saluer très chaleureusement pour son intervention et j'espère le revoir très bientôt. Nous devons d'ailleurs discuter ensemble de notre future collaboration. Merci Patrick, à très vite. Tout de suite, je vais laisser la parole à nos collègues du port de Béjaïa, qui nous fait le plaisir d'être là, malgré, je crois, un conseil d'administration très important actuellement. Donc, au port de Béjaïa, il a été patient, Monsieur Adjal, qui veut bien nous faire une présentation sur ce qu'a été en fait les conséquences en termes d'opérations portuaires. Si je ne me trompe pas, Monsieur Adjal, vous êtes Port Security Officer. Et donc, je pense que votre intervention va être particulièrement intéressante et appréciée. Monsieur Adjal, c'est un plaisir de vous revoir. On se connaît, on s'est déjà croisés et c'est toujours un plaisir de vous entendre. Merci, Monsieur Adjal. Nous avons 5 minutes.
OK.
Merci. À tout de suite.
Bonjour. Là, vous m'entendez? Bonjour.
Nous vous entendons, très bien.
Ok,
merci.
Bonjour à tout le monde. Philippe, donc c'est toujours un plaisir de vous revoir. Je ne manquerai pas aussi cette opportunité de souhaiter un très bon anniversaire à Jordi. Il est vrai maintenant, bon, je vous transmets les amitiés du premier responsable de l'entreprise, c'est Casmi, comme vous l'avez bien dit. Donc, il est en plein conseil d'administration actuellement. Il m'a chargé en fait de vous faire une petite rétrospective sur ce que nous avons vécu ici au port de Béjaïa. Donc, j'aurai mon intervention, comme vous l'avez si bien dit, Philippe. Donc, je suis le Port Security Officer du port de Béjaïa et parallèlement, j'occupe aussi le poste de directeur général adjoint. Donc, je vais essayer de faire mon intervention aura en fait son aspect qui revêt un peu cette autorité portuaire et que comment nous avons réagi ou bien que comment nous avons fait en fait pour contenir un peu cette situation qu'il faut signaler aussi qui a causé énormément de stress dans l'environnement portuaire, dans les travailleurs, dans toute la population de marins et de dockers dans l'entreprise portuaire de Béjaïa. Et parallèlement, toutes ces mesures de réconfortement que nous avons essayé de mener de manière à appliquer les gestes barrières qui ont été édictés en fait par l'Organisation mondiale de la santé. Et nous avons travaillé aussi de très près avec les orientations et les recommandations de l'Organisation maritime internationale. Donc, juste pour commencer, on a eu un impact du Covid sur le port de Béjaïa, à l'instar de tous les ports, dans toutes les interventions que j'ai eu l'occasion et le plaisir d'écouter. Donc, on a enregistré en fait pour le premier trimestre de 2020 une régression du trafic de moins 6%. Bon, il est dû bien évidemment au frein qui a eu, comme c'est stipulé, comme dans l'usine du Monde, qui est du côté de la Chine. Donc, il y a eu les activités qui ont baissé d'une manière extraordinaire et vient rajouter un peu la réticence européenne en fait sur le trafic maritime et les expéditions maritimes. Donc, ces 6%-là se sont traduites en fait par la baisse des impôts à près de 2% et carrément qui au début, il faudra le signaler, a apporté une situation très, très désagréable, comme vous l'avez si bien dit, dans la chaîne de l'approvisionnement. Comme vous le savez bien, la majeure partie de nous ici en Algérie, 92% des importations sont faites par voie maritime. Par contre, on a vu une certaine hausse dans le trafic de céréales. On l'a vu augmenter un peu de 13% par rapport au même trimestre de l'an précédent, probablement dû aux différents contrats qui ont été élaborés du côté de l'Amérique latine et tout, que eux n'ont pas été touchés de plein fouet, comme ça a été le cas du côté des pays asiatiques et européens. Et puis par la suite, maintenant, on voit un revirement de situation, de manière, on voit cette vague-là qui diffère beaucoup plus vers les pays des Amériques, donc c'est que ce soit du Nord ou bien du Sud. On a été impacté énormément sur le trafic de passagers. On a vu tout simplement l'annulation de toute cette activité-là dans tous les ports algériens. Donc, on s'est vu en fait ôter ce trafic-là par décision de l'autorité ministérielle qui a jugé bon en fait pour assurer un certain équilibre ou bien pour éviter la propagation de ce virus-là. Donc, il y a eu une décision qui a été très ferme, qui touche un peu à toute cette activité-là, du trafic à passagers. Donc, on a vu tout simplement annuler le trafic, que ce soit aérien ou maritime, hein, c'est-à-dire au vu la fermeture des frontières aussi de l'autre côté. Je fais allusion donc, à la France, l'Espagne et l'Italie. Nous, port de BGS, c'est-à-dire pour essayer de mettre en relief, parce qu'on a aussi cette interface-là, un navire-port que nous avons eu à gérer aussi, que nous gérons aussi, vis-à-vis des marins étrangers qui touchent le port de Béjaïa. On a ressenti cette réticence-là quant aux relations professionnelles que nous avons eu à avoir avec les navires, avec le marin étranger en fait. C'est pourquoi nous avons essayé de travailler en étroite donc ces collaborations. On a suivi un peu toutes les recommandations qui émanaient un peu de l'organisation maritime et internationale quant à la gestion des marins à bord. Et par extrapolation, donc ils sont utilisés un peu pour tous nos bateliers, pour tous les équipages de remorquage. Sans rentrer dans le détail, donc c'est la mise en œuvre des gestes barrières, les opérations de désinfection régulièrement. On est arrivé même à désinfecter un peu l'interface navire-port pour mettre à l'aise un peu, que ce soit le marin bord ou bien le docker terre, de manière à assurer une certaine facilitation et dans leur activité respectivement. Je ferai allusion aussi, si vous me permettez, Philippe, donc pour revenir un peu à l'activité des passagers, qui s'est vue, donc c'est carrément comme on l'a souligné, malgré un peu toutes nos assurances ou toutes les conditions de sécurité que nous avons essayé de mettre en exergue, de mettre en œuvre pour essayer de rattraper un peu cette mesure-là. Mais il est vrai que jusqu'alors, il n'y a eu aucune des décisions qui va un peu dans l'assouplissement de cette mesure de toute cette activité-là. Le point fort, entre deux guillemets, je dirais qui a entraîné, que le Covid a entraîné dans les ports algériens, on a eu cette opportunité de voir l'allègement, chose, je pense, nous allons apprendre un peu de ce Covid-là, de cette situation-là que nous sommes en train de vivre. C'est-à-dire il y a eu un engouement sur l'utilisation de l'EDI, c'est carrément dit, vis-à-vis donc c'est l'autorité portuaire et toute la communauté portuaire qui tourne autour. Parce que comme vous le savez bien, on a toujours travaillé, on a toujours favorisé, malgré que nous avons une volonté de réajuster un peu, c'est-à-dire de transférer ou bien de basculer notre manière de faire à tout ce qui est donc ces documents et tout, au système, à tout informatiser. Donc, ce Covid-là nous a ramené, nous a poussé un peu à accélérer un peu ce processus-là. C'est du moment que nous voyons maintenant toutes les procédures de dédouanement de marchandises au port se font d'une manière très fluide, d'une manière très courte. Ça, c'est le bon côté de la pandémie. En attendant, c'est-à-dire de généraliser un peu tous ces systèmes-là à l'avenir. Aussi, comme vous le savez très bien…
Monsieur Adjal, si on peut commencer à penser à la conclusion, je suis désolé de vous couper.
Ah oui, je m'excuse. Là, je viens de dépasser un peu bon, je m'excuse.
C'est moi.
Ouais.
Je voudrais pouvoir laisser la parole, les questions-réponses pour la suite. Merci beaucoup.
Ok, d'accord. Je vous en prie, donc je cède la parole et je vous remercie beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Adjal. Merci. Surtout que nous avons une très rapide, là aussi, présentation en quelques minutes. Monsieur Adjal, merci encore de vous être libéré de votre conseil d'administration et puis ce retour d'expérience du port de Béjaïa est toujours intéressante. Vous saluerez de ma part Halim qui dirige ce port et qui est très impliqué dans les affaires de la Medport Association. Autre membre de la Medport Association, votre voisin tunisien, Imed Zamit, directeur de l'Institut méditerranéen des formations en Tunisie, à Tunis. Imed, est-ce que tu es là? Est-ce que je peux te donner la parole?
Donc,
Imed?
oui, je suis là.
Voilà, bonjour Imed. Merci de ta participation. Je vais être encore plus rude avec toi qu'avec les autres et je vais te demander de faire bien tenir ça en 5 minutes, malgré tout l'intérêt, je sais, de tout ce que tu fais en Tunisie. Merci beaucoup, Imed, de ton retour d'expérience. Merci.
Merci Philippe. Est-ce que tu peux activer ma caméra, s'il vous plaît?
Nos techniciens vont œuvrer.
Ils vont le faire.
Voilà, je pense qu'ils vont le faire. Nous avons le son qui précède l'image, mais ça va arriver tout de suite.
Oui. Philippe, donc je vais quand même, vu la contrainte de temps, je vais commencer à mon exposé.
Oui, commençons.
Exactement. Donc, le secteur de la formation, donc, il n'a pas échappé aussi à cette crise due à cette crise sanitaire. Si les ports et le transport maritime donc, ils tournent au ralenti, donc la formation elle est complètement donc, à l'arrêt depuis 3 mois. Cet arrêt donc, il a beaucoup de conséquences en vérité. Donc on est en situation difficile. Je présume que tous les établissements de formation on est dans la même donc, situation. Il y a eu donc suspension des contrats cadres de formation en continu au profit des entreprises maritimes, étant donné que tout le monde est en confinement. Arrêt aussi des formations donc en termes de la différence des certificats exigés par les conventions internationales SCCW. Donc le collègue de l'OMI il en a parlé tout à l'heure. Donc il y a eu cette prorogation des certificats. Il y a eu aussi, oui Philippe. Donc il y a eu aussi un décalage des sessions de formation qui, normalement, devraient débuter donc, le mois de février. Tout cela, il a eu un impact financier donc, énorme. On a à peu près 90% de notre chiffre d'affaires qu'on a perdu. On est aussi donc, devant un problème de remboursement de frais de scolarité pour des formations qui devraient donc, débuter au mois de fin février et mois de mars. Et là, donc, on est en train de voir est-ce que la pandémie, c'est un cas de force majeure, oui ou non, donc c'est un problème légal. Donc, on n'est pas resté donc, les bras croisés, on a essayé de chercher des solutions et on a dit donc, si on pourrait donc, opter à la formation à distance. Mais on a rencontré plusieurs problèmes donc, sur ce point-là. Sur le plan juridique, donc, il s'avère qu'il n'y a pas un cadre légal qui permet donc, de poursuivre l'activité de formation à distance. Donc, ce cadre légal n'existe pas donc, dans la formation professionnelle et là, c'est un handicap énorme. Sur le plan opérationnel, donc, on a voulu aussi essayer donc, de faire un cours d'essai de formation à distance, mais il s'est avéré aussi donc il y a des problèmes, donc un manque de matériel, d'infrastructures pour les établissements de formation, inexistence de plateforme pour les cours. Pour les apprenants aussi, il y a un problème de connexion Internet et un problème d'ordinateur aussi. Et le troisième point, c'est que le personnel enseignant aussi, il est non qualifié pour assurer les cours à distance et donc il faut faire une formation dans ce sens. Pour la reprise des activités aussi, donc on a essayé de mettre en place une stratégie donc pour qu'on puisse reprendre nos activités, mais le respect du protocole sanitaire va limiter drastiquement donc, la capacité d'accueil des salles de cours. Aussi, donc, on va confronter aussi le problème de distanciation le problème d'utilisation des masques, donc de masques de protection pour les apprenants et pour les enseignants. Donc, et là aussi, donc, on est en train de voir comment pallier à ce problème-là. Sur le plan pédagogique, donc, je crois que le retour à la normale, donc, il va nécessiter des heures supplémentaires de cours pour le rappel.
Yes, hello. It seems that Philippe has lost its connection.
I'm back. I'm back. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm back. I have totally lost my connection. I'm sorry for that. J'avais complètement perdu ma connexion. Je suis désolé. Du coup, j'ai pas écouté la fin de l'intervention d'Imet, mais qui montrait en fait les difficultés de la formation, qui est quand même quelque chose de particulièrement important pour là aussi pour les conditions de la reprise et du monde de demain, parce que nous l'avons dit, le télétravail, le home working, le remote, tout va bien, mais il faut encore avoir les outils. Et là, c'est très important de s'assurer que tout le monde ait les outils de cette connectivité. Donc, c'est vraiment très important. La preuve en est, vous voyez, je viens de perdre la connexion et donc je viens de perdre quelques minutes de ce webinaire qui arrive à sa fin, je pense. Francesque, je parle sous ton contrôle. Nous avons pour cette session beaucoup de questions et de demandes d'intervention. Malheureusement, je crois que nous ne pourrons pas donner suite à tous parce que finalement, nous avions prévu 3 heures, mais je crois que Francesque, on aurait pu passer toute la journée. Donc, il va falloir peut-être proposer la parole quand même à Madame Fettala et Edouard Rodès, juste pour quelques mots de commentaires et de conclusion. Avant de clôturer ce webinaire. Francesque, on peut opter pour ça?
Oui, c'est bon, mais très vite. Oui.
Très vite. Nous allons donc laisser la parole par galanterie à Madame Fettala, qui est donc peut-être présente encore parmi nous, directrice générale de la marine marchande du Maroc. Madame Fetala, vous avez la parole. Ou Monsieur Fetala, pardon, excusez-moi, j'ai peut-être été vite dans ce que j'ai vu. Non. Alors, je vais demander à Edward. Edward, tu es là? Non plus. Edward nous a laissé. Écoutez, si on n'a pas d'autres demandes d'intervention et de présence, pour ma part, je vais donc clôturer cette session qui a montré toute l'importance, évidemment, de l'échange, de la mise en commun des expériences, qui montre aussi toute la nécessité d'avoir une approche aussi méditerranéenne. Je crois que c'est très important aussi que cette zone-là éminemment stratégique. Oui, voilà, Madame Fetala.
Oui, je suis avec vous. J'ai essayé d'activer mon micro. Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Écoutez, alors, nous allons vous laisser la parole. Francesque, qui est le bad cop de la série, me dit de vous donner que 2 minutes, pas plus, Madame Fetala.
Je vous remercie. Donc, merci à tous d'avoir organisé cette conférence. En fait, toutes les institutions et tous les travaux nous incitent à renforcer la coopération régionale pour assurer la résilience des chaînes logistiques. Nous sommes tous d'accord que nous travaillons dans un milieu partagé, l'obligation commune de le protéger et le sauvegarder et l'obligation commune d'appliquer la législation internationale. En cas de crise comme celle que nous vivons, nous sommes tous appelés à permettre le déplacement, à prendre les mesures adéquates pour protéger et apporter assistance aux gens de mer et plaisanciers transitant par nos ports et assurer la circulation des biens et la continuité des chaînes d'approvisionnement. À titre d'exemple, 11 opérations de rapatriement ont eu lieu pour le rapatriement des Européens. Plus de 3000 personnes ont été déplacées au moment où les frontières ont été fermées. Donc, le Maroc a ouvert ses frontières dans ces cas-là. Mais dès que nous parlons de mesures de soutien, d'outils pour faire face aux crises, la mer a d'un coup des frontières. C'est le cas pour les subventions des autoroutes de la mer maritime. J'ai suivi avec intérêt les présentations et mesures de l'Union européenne, mais rien n'est mis en place. Et je déplore que la stratégie de relance qui nous est aujourd'hui présentée ne tient pas compte du tout de l'effort qui est aujourd'hui fourni par les ports du sud de la Méditerranée. Il faudrait que toutes les mesures qui sont aujourd'hui prises tiennent en compte cette frange sud de la Méditerranée. Moi, je suis révoltée parce que nous n'avons aucun soutien. Quand il s'agit de nous demander l'application des mesures, tout le monde est là pour nous dire qu'il faut y aller, il faut soutenir, il faut faire ceci, il faut faire cela. Mais dès qu'on parle de mesures de soutien, nos compagnies sont mises à part et nos ports n'ont aucun soutien. Donc moi, vraiment, je lance un appel à toute la communauté pour que toutes ces mesures qui sont prises par l'Union européenne tiennent compte de la présence quand même de cette France Sud. Voilà, je pense que je n'ai pas dépassé mon temps de parole. Je vous remercie beaucoup de me l'avoir donné.
Merci, Madame Fetala. Je peux que, en tant que secrétaire général de la Medport Association, souscrire à votre propos. Nous travaillons évidemment pour que notre Méditerranée puisse aussi bénéficier d'un certain nombre de mesures et de politiques européennes. Les transports maritimes de courte distance, les autoroutes de la mer sont un exemple parfait. Et je pense que dans les programmes de connexion européenne avec le continent africain, la Méditerranée doit avoir tout son rôle et je peux encore une fois que souscrire à votre propos. Pour pas prendre moi la parole, Edward Rodès qui voulait parler au nom de l'école européenne d'intermodalité de Barcelone. Edouard, tu es revenu? Non? Non. Donc, pour finir cette session que j'ai eu le plaisir de modérer, encore une fois, merci à tous ceux qui ont participé et puis à tous ceux qui ont assisté à cette session qui était, je crois, très riche, longue, mais très, très riche, et qui a apporté beaucoup d'éléments. J'invite tous les ports qui ont assisté à ce séminaire, à ce webinaire, de nous rejoindre et de nous contacter au sein de la Medport Association parce que nous avons un certain nombre d'informations aussi à partager. ensemble. Il y a des travaux qui pourront être lancés. Je voudrais remercier chaleureusement Francesca et l'Union pour la Méditerranée d'avoir bien voulu participer, avoir voulu nous inviter à participer, et à co-organiser ce webinaire qui, je crois, est un succès et qui certainement est appelé à se reproduire d'ici quelques temps. Afin de refaire un point sur les conséquences de cette crise. Merci à tous les intervenants. S'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, et je vais laisser maintenant la parole à Francesca pour les mots de conclusion. Si je ne me trompe pas. Francesca, merci encore. Merci à tous. Merci, au revoir.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Maybe first thing I would like to say is that we had foreseen this closing session to have Alberto Palacios, the technical director of CEDMO, the Center of Transport Studies for the Western Mediterranean, to help us. He has been sort of acting as rapporteur of this webinar, and he will be sharing the conclusions he had prepared for this last session with all of you. This is one first item that we will be sharing with you. So really, I am grateful for this work that has been done by Alberto Palacios in preparing these conclusions, and they will be shared with you, as I say, right after the conclusion of this webinar. That's the first thing. We'll be sharing also the presentations and the links to all the documents that the different international organizations who have participated in this webinar, links, I mean, to the documents, the guidance documents and forecasts that have been presented in this meeting. We know it's a very large field, and we couldn't cover everything in this webinar. We haven't even used more time that initially expected, but we will also collect all your comments and questions in the Q&A, and we will share these questions with the panelists so they can decide whether they can react to them. That's another thing. So, but for us, the objectives of the meetings have been largely achieved. We wanted to have some guidance for our discussions for the next UFM Strategic Transport Action Plan for the region. And this has been largely achieved, as I say. And so I want to thank all of you for these fruitful discussions. Also people who have been listening and watching through the Facebook live streaming. And already we still have, I think, almost 90 participants with us. So thanks again, and thank you thanks to Medports Association for being such a good partner, such an instrumental partner in the preparation of this webinar. We also hope to have other editions of these webinars. As I said, the topic is so large, so we need to further exchange on this, and gathering, as Ms. Fetala said just a while ago, both the north and the south, east and west of the Mediterranean. This our role is about fostering cooperation, and all the guidance provided today, all the exchanges are very much in line with our work. In the coming weeks, we hope to have an online meeting of our usual working group meetings on transport. We have meetings on maritime transport and land transport, also on logistics and on aviation. So we hope to resume these meetings, and all the elements that have been discussed today, rest assured that will be used and also shared afterwards with you in these meetings. So thanks again. I don't know if Philippe wants to add something, but
no, nothing to add. It was just perfect what you said. Just thank you for all, and see you physical or not online. See you next, and in coming weeks. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, so thanks to everybody, and have a good day or a good evening, depending on where you have connected to the webinar. Thank you.